Well, today was absolutely crazy. I don't know if y'all saw that White House meeting where Zelensky, Trump, Vance were discussing the war, actively having a negotiation, as it were. And there are many minds about it. Of course, many liberal-leaning personalities say this is an embarrassing moment for the United States. Vladimir Putin was the only winner. However, many on the right are saying Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, was arrogant and dismissive of the concerns that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump had, which is an insane strategy in a negotiation. Still, it's remarkable to see this degree of conversation happening in public. Trump even saying the American people should see this. I'm going to give you my opinion right away. I mean, Zelensky, it was shocking how he needed to be deferential to the country that was providing him hundreds of billions of dollars to save itself. And he wasn't. He was argumentative. This could theoretically end the war not in their favor if the U.S. just basically abandons them. So we're going to talk about that. But we are at a special party, and we are hanging out with a bunch of really great people. We're going to be discussing what exactly is going on with the Epstein files. Because as you know, yesterday, there's this big hubbub around influencers who are given this binder. In fact, it's actually sitting right here. I'm not going to hold it up because that is a taboo. All the influencers holding it up. Everybody was like, you're taking selfies instead of breaking this news. But we have Mike Cernovich here who's going to break down for us exactly what went down, how it all happened. And we're also joined by Rob Smith, who's going to be hanging out and talk to us. Before we get started, head over to castbrew.com. Buy Cast Brew coffee. It's delicious. Ian's Graphene Dream is sold out. Too bad, Ian. But you can go and check out Appalachian Nights. Rise with Roberto Jr., a big favorite. A light roast. And as always, go to... Oh, it's not working? All right, real quick. The monitor dropped out. There you go. Well, it's still not so good. Go to rumble.com/Timcast IRL. Check out our playlist. The Green Room Show has been popping off. 30, 40,000 per episode behind the scenes at the Timcast IRL studios. Off-the-cuff conversations. We had one, The World is Ending with Mike Crispy. That was fun. I was ranting. And then a couple days ago, I talked about the birth of my child. If you want to hear that story, that is available in the Green Room at rumble.com. Use promo code TIM10. Sign up. Join Rumble Premium. Joining us tonight, as I already mentioned, we got Rob Smith hanging out.
Yeah, man.
Who are you? What do you do?
Who am I? What do I do? Man, Rob Smith at Rob Smith Online. Got a podcast called Can't Cancel Rob Smith. Just dropped the new episode actually right now. So go get that on Apple Podcasts, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts. Man, I just run my mouth on social media. I am a Iraq War veteran. Served in 4th ID. A couple tours in the Middle East. I've been out here in social media, in these social media streets for years. Have been at a couple of these White House influencer summits, but not the one that happened yesterday. Unfortunately, I did not make that one, so I know that was quite the controversy.
Right on. Well, we're also hanging out with Mike Cernovich.
Yeah.
Who was there.
Yeah, I was there, here to handle all the drama.
Break it down and tell us the details about what really happened.
The details and the real news. What frustrated me about yesterday is and I posted my notes online, we had all these notes. There was a whole media strategy. There were all these things to talk about. But I was under embargo for 3 hours, and I'm just watching people, including people that I've done nothing but retweet and help, saying the terrible things about me. And then I made 4 videos actually in response. I was with a friend of mine, Eric. I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to respond to anything. I'm going to let the hyenas reveal themselves. I want to let everybody tell on themselves because I want to know who is on the blacklist now. And a lot of people were. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. I checked my DMs. It's like, oh, wow. I have 15 DMs from you asking me to retweet your stuff, especially when you had a nascent career, you didn't have anything. Oh, but you forgot how to use a DM now when you can try to bash me.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. So look, Mike, we were talking about this last night. Yeah. And first of all, there's nobody.
Wait. Sorry. Let's jump into this conversation after we get through everybody. So Ian and
Phil, I'm happy Ian Crossland in the house, bro. Let's fucking roll.
My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. Let's go.
So should we hold up the binder?
They'll screen cap you, and then you'll be in the drama.
Oh God, they're gonna screen cap me. Okay, this is what the binder would look like.
Don't smile because if you smile, that means you obviously don't care about people.
Can we open the binder?
Yeah. Show everybody.
Show everybody what the first page is.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first page.
Oh, don't show.
It's blank.
Okay. No, you're fine. There's nothing. Yeah, you can show them everything.
Okay. The first page is just blank.
There's a table of contents.
I think this is the third page.
No,
can I just start leafing through it?
Yeah. There's nothing.
Here's page. Okay, now we're getting into the juicy grits of the binder. I don't know what all these words and names are. Maybe you can explain it, Michael.
Well, let's start from
Table
the
of contents.
Let's start from the
Oh,
beginning.
this is it.
Yeah. So we'll start from the beginning. The number one lie that was told, well, and there were so many lies, how can you keep track, was, and it was funny because I ran into a friend randomly, we won't say who, and we were hanging out, and then I texted Rob to come hang out. We wound up meeting in person finally. And it was so funny because the internet was like doing whatever, and we're just hanging out. And the timeline of it was interesting because there were a couple weeks ago, there was a summit to discuss new media strategies, and the press pool is going to change. They want people like you doing interviews in the White House. Mm-hmm. They wanted to take over. They wanted WACA, the White House Correspondents Association, which is a cartel that would exclude people like you and us. They were ending the cartel. So everything was about, here's a new media strategy. And there were people from the Federalists that were covering other things. And then there were a few of us who were in one room because you can only have so many people. And so we go there, they take our phones, they claim it's a secure room, whatever. No phones. We get briefings from everybody. I can't say who, but from everybody. It was on background, which a lot of people who don't have any journalistic ethics like, well, wait, why did you wait 3 hours? Well, because it was an embargo. It's called an embargo. There's a reason people talk to me and not the people that are going after me, because it's an embargo. An embargo means you can smear me for 3 hours and there is nothing that I can do to defend myself. But that's the honor. That's honor system. So no phones. Great day. Trump ends up, we got the challenge coins. Trump, we weren't really supposed to meet Trump. You know how it is in the White House. Yeah. Trump world, chaotic, right? And they're just like, oh, here's Trump. Oh, here's these guys. And the whole point of the meeting was that we want Timcast, we want the Federalist, we want Breitbart, we want Rob Smith. We want people covering the media alongside the New York Times, because the New York Times and WACA is spreading a hoax that, only pro-Trump people are going to be allowed. That's just an abject lie. As you can see if you're there, they're just saying that, no, these other people that you excluded with your cartel-like behavior can't be excluded anymore, right? And so we get all these, I have all these notes, I feel like I'm back in law school and I'm taking notes, super hyped. And then I can't say who, but you could guess who, because again, it's on background, which means I can't say who the person was, but we get the big box of stuff comes in, binders, Epstein files, right? Like, oh, that's interesting. They brief us and they go, hey, don't overhype this. Here's what's going on. We thought we had all the files we needed, but we found out that there's been stonewalling and destruction of evidence, and Anna Paulina has said this publicly, and this was a different person who told us. So here's a letter to Kash Patel. The story is the letter. The files we're giving you because we want to show like, hey, we're doing what we can do. We're doing what we can do. Don't overhype them. Downplay expectations. But the letter was the big story. Embargo's till 3. Okay, great. So we have our meetings. We go into the Oval Office. Everybody's like super hyped up now because Trump's in there. If anybody wants any of that information, I can talk about all that. But everybody's super like wound up. And we leave the Oval Office after taking our pictures and getting our coins and our markers and everything. And then here's the marker. I'll show you. They're pretty cool. The ASMR executive pin marker for signing the
I've got one of those from Trump 1.0.
Yeah.
They're extra squeaky,
somewhere.
right?
The marker,
Yeah.
So everybody's like wound up. And then the UK people needed the room that we were in the West Wing. So they're like, sorry, guys, we got to leave. We're going to go up to the other room in the Eisenhower building. It's actually the interview room where J.D. Vance had his I don't really care Margaret moment. So we're walking down from the West Wing, and then I felt like I was walking into a firing squad because I don't like people to know that what I do, because then all people do is bloodsuck. Yeah. Oh, Cerno. Oh, how do I meet Trump? Oh, and then they get jealousy, like, well, why are you there and not? All it does is causes me problems. So everybody who actually knows me knows that I'm always like, look, I'm irrelevant, I'm a loser, don't text me, lose my number, I can't do anything, because I don't want people to know, because it's just manipulative. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and then some people turned over because they go, what are you holding? So everybody's just kind of like, well, it's like a natural reaction. And if you see the one picture, I was like trying to hide my face. My eyes are like, it's like, where's Waldo? And then I put it down, and then they're like, oh, you smirked. You don't understand the seriousness of the moment. Like, no, I tried to hide my face. The smirk was, I was like, I'm caught. I got caught. It felt like you were leaving a brothel, and then it was like your girlfriend was out there, right? You're like, oh man, but you're leaving a frat party or something. You're like, man, I'm totally caught. And then we had to go up to the room, and we still don't have phones. We don't have our phones.
They took your phones from you?
Yeah. So we didn't have our phones, and then all the people are posting pictures of us.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, man. And then I get my phone back at like 12:45, 12:50, and then I'm tagged in all these pictures. And then they're like, oh, they got the Epstein files. And I'm like, dude, I'm under embargo. I can't say that they're nothing, even though I'd been briefed that they were nothing, but that they were trying to get what they had, and the real story was the letter from the AG to Cash. That was the real story. And I'm like, man. So I started DMing people. You guys called, and I was like, guys, it's nothing. Here's the letter. It's under embargo till 3. Trying to manage expectations back scene, and then in the back of the scene, right? And then that all becomes, oh, you're covering up, and why did you guys only get these things, and why didn't we? So for 3 hours, I just had to let people like give me a licking, right? And it was a lot of people. I was surprised. I was like, man, all these years, and you can't send me a DM before you put me on blast.
Why do you think that they released it to 5 people and not to the public?
Let me. I'm sorry.
We'll follow up with that later.
What I wanted to point out to a lot of people who don't know is that the only reason we have these files, whatever they may be, even if it's 10 years old, is because you filed legal paperwork which broke open the Epstein story. That is you. When I saw people coming out of the White House, and you're in the background, kind of like looking away and like trying to get away from the cameras, there was no moment in my mind where I was like, how come Mike is there? I was like, of course Mike is there. He broke this story.
But like literally, you were the guy, like the guy that started the. How did it start when you?
It started, there was a defamation action brought against Ghislaine Maxwell, and everything, my lawyer, Mark Randazza, who's a First Amendment lawyer, and he sent me this case file, and everything was just redacted. And he goes, hey, aren't you always like talking about Epstein? And I go, yeah. And he said, well, here's a backdoor way for you to get Epstein information. Because it was a defamation case, there were depositions. It wasn't against Epstein, but it involved him because it was a civil lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell. So we filed what was called the motion to intervene on behalf of Cerno Media, my media company, and a motion to unseal.
Wow.
And so we filed that. And we lost at the trial court level, and then we went up on appeal to the Second Circuit. And in the meantime, the Miami Herald then filed, they joined mine. So they joined my motion to intervene and motion to unseal. They also lost. And then it all went up to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. And then in oral argument, it became so obvious that the files would be unsealed that Epstein was arrested the weekend after oral arguments indicated. And Tim can confirm this.
I want to stress this.
Yeah.
Epstein was a free man.
Yes.
Mike filed these papers. Miami Herald joins.
Yep.
Epstein gets arrested.
What did he get arrested for?
Well, the indictment thing is a whole other story we've talked about before, where it was a containment operation. So if you read the indictment against Epstein, they charged the minimal amount of conduct that you could charge that would allow you to create a media firestorm around it and make it look like you were doing something. But they didn't contemporaneously raid the New Mexico property, the island, because I remember Luke Rukowski was going down to the island. The FBI hadn't even gone there.
Yeah.
So the criminal case against Epstein was actually a containment operation, which is a different discussion, which we've had before, because I explained that there's Mann Act violations that weren't charged. It really was. It was like, well, we got to charge him with something. We'll charge him, well, he got a massage in his apartment. Therefore, we could only search his apartment. We can't search Santa Fe because all this is about is him getting a massage from a 16-year-old. Containment operation. It was a mop-up operation, clearly. And but that's what they charged him with, but they didn't charge him until the Second Circuit at oral argument. The oral argument was actually pretty funny. They go, well, why can't you unseal these records? You can't be in federal court and have confidentiality. You can be in arbitration and have confidentiality. You can have an NDA which unfortunately a lot of media outlets use to silence people, is you can put people under NDA and mandate arbitration, but once you're in federal court, that's all public. Other than your social security number, your address, financial like revenue records, you can redact confidential information, but you can't just say psh, the whole legal theory and allegations and everything can't be redacted. So the Second Circuit oral argument, where Rendaz was there and the Miami Herald was there, they go, I mean, what are you talking about? Of course. And it was obvious. So if you read the contemporaneous media coverage, which a lot of people didn't read at the time and they don't know how to look up, you can say oral argument says Miami Herald and Cernovich are going to get this. Then they arrest Epstein a couple of days later when he's flying back. So if there isn't me and there isn't the Miami Herald, 100% he doesn't get indicted. 100%. This is not up for like rational debate. So the people, go ahead.
It was a crazy chain of events when all this was going down, and I remember Luke being like, "They arrested him! Like, what happened?" And now here we are. I mean, how many years ago was that? Like 8 years?
2019, I think.
2019, so 6 or so years.
Yeah.
And now we have this moment at the White House where the files are coming out.
Yeah, so follow-up question from earlier. So they give these files to 5 people or something?
No, everybody in the room got it. 15.
Okay, but why 15? Why a small select group and not the public?
Why shouldn't they?
What was your take on that?
No, I mean, I hate that question because everybody online is like, well, why? It's pretty normal for some people to get releases of information that they can go through. And like, why just release it online and then every random person can post some random thing out of context?
In case gatekeepers get a hold of it and decide.
I mean, 20 people, you can't gatekeep 20 people, right? So, for example, the files were pretty much nothing, and one of them was a black book. But if they just use some general release, some lunatic is going to say, oh, look, Trump was in it. And you're like, it was a black book. Walter Isaacson was in it. Ivana Trump was in it. It was just a list of phone numbers. It's like if somebody goes into your email, they're like, oh, wow, you had his email, therefore there's this. So a lot of people handle things irresponsibly. So if it's one person or 2 people or 3 people, then the whole like, well, maybe it's being gatekept could be possible. But with 20 people, there's just no way to gatekeep it.
Do you think this was a stunt, a PR stunt?
The debate is, and this is how some people who were there yesterday feel. I don't feel this way. There's 3 theories. The theory I have, the theory that we were set up, and then the theory that it was 4D chess. So the 4D chess theory is that the reaction of everybody yesterday was so intense that that's really going to pressure SDNY and the FBI to know people are really mad. You got to give something real, right? So it was all 4D chess. The setup thing was like, well, we got set up to look bad. That wasn't the vibe of the meeting. Hey, everybody come in. You're going to get briefed by everybody. Trump's going to give everybody a coin. Trump's whole thing is you guys are the media now. There's people now on Air Force One who are with the Daily Wires on Air Force One. If you guys want to get on Air Force One, you're going to be able to. So, hey, you guys can be on Air Force One if you want. Apply. We'll get you on. Oh, you want to go to an international meeting? Posobiec went to, I think, the Ukraine stuff. You can go. Oh, but we're going to set you up. Like, what? Please set me up more. It's just not congruent as a theory. And then the 4D chessman is, I don't think it is. What I think happened was Pam Bondi was on the media hyping things, and then she found out that there was a big cover-up. She wanted to hand people what they had because Anna Paulina and other people in Congress were hassling her. She's 60. She doesn't look 60. She's 60. She doesn't understand the OODA loop of new media and how it's just chaos. So once everybody went out and once there was a picture, no embargo. There just should have been no embargo. I should have just been able to say, hey, guys, there's nothing in here, just so you know.
Well, it got leaked almost instantly.
Right. And then you got to end the embargo. So the OODA loop, which is my theory, is that if you're more old school, you don't understand it's chaos. And once one little thing happens, you have to respond in the information battlefield immediately. You can't go, well, the embargo's till 3.
Yeah.
Who cares that your pictures are there? Now Elon's wondering what's in these files. Everybody, so I'm DMing people. Guys, it's actually the letter. It's under embargo. I'm messaging you. Viva Frey. Everybody who DMs me, I'm being like, guys, no. Don't say anything till 3 o'clock, though. And that's just how it went down.
I heard that Pam Bondi initiated a raid on the New York, what was it, the AG up there? The people that were apparently holding files. Do you guys know much about this?
You heard that?
Yeah,
I had heard something like that too, and I think I saw on Alina Habba's Instagram that she just has boxes of files that are on their way back or something like that.
Yeah, I heard that too.
I think that this is moving.
Yeah, and that's the
Big
40
news.
Yeah.
That's the 4D chess argument.
I agree with that argument.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do, because they knew who they were having in the room, right? And they know that these are people with lots of followers,
Yeah.
lots of influence, etc. In Team Trump and the White House press team and all these people, they understand this new media moment that we're in. They understand how the conversation flies on Twitter, etc., etc. So I think that they knew something like this would happen. Right.
So-
I think that they knew they were going to generate conversation.
Alina Habba said, I just personally loaded the infamous boxes onto Air Force One to head home where they belong. Justice has been and will continue to be restored in this country under President Trump. Truth and justice always win in the end. God bless America. She didn't say the Epstein stuff, just infamous boxes, but I think the implication is clear, right?
Yes, that's what it seemed like to me when I read it.
I mean, there's I guess there's at least an argument to say, hold on, considering the situation with the Epstein files and stuff so far, I wouldn't get super excited about this being the stuff coming out just because of the way that it's been kind of, leaked out so far. I'll believe it when I see it, I guess. Skepticism is the policy.
I think I kind of go with your take on what's going on, because they called this binder the Epstein Files Phase 1.
Yes.
Knowing that there's going to be more releases coming, they obviously didn't intend for this to be the final binder.
And we were specifically told, so I don't want to, because I don't want to create drama like who did what and should they not have done things and should, I don't want to get into that whole conversation. I'll just say that I personally did not hype anything as if it was coming out. And I specifically was telling people back channel that, hey, because in my own mind, I knew what was going to happen. Everybody's waiting for them.
Yeah.
And then we're going to look like lunatic, we're going to look bad.
So what happens is, if you're one of the influencers that gets invited to something like this, right? Obviously, I wasn't there yesterday, but I've been to kind of similar things within the White House, and I know the press team and some of the influencer people, et cetera. There's an excitement from being there, right? There's an excitement to try to be first, to try to do this, to try to take the photo, all of that stuff. And I think that some people get caught up in that. It's a very natural and very easy thing to get caught up in. I've been in similar rooms with some of the people that in that room. I mean, I get it. I think that a lot of the conversation that was happening online that was attacking like Cerno and that was attacking all these other people, and we talked about this, sometimes when you are dragged by other media personalities or pseudo influencers or whatever on the internet, it sometimes just is jealousy. It sometimes just is the fact that people think that they were supposed to be in this room, and why him and why not me? Why Cerno, why not me? Why Rob Smith and why not me? Why that? I don't know who's the, Isabel Bryan or Liz Wheeler?
Why Laura Loomer, not me?
Exactly.
I'll be honest.
Love you, Laura.
The conversation around why wasn't I invited is for your personal team and not for the public.
Yes.
So when I called my PR booking communications who's walking up to the White House, I was like, how did we miss this?
Yeah.
She's like, I don't know. And I'm like, all right, well, let's figure out how we get it next time.
Yeah.
And what did I do? And what did I do today? What did I do today? I texted you the person.
And he handed me the binder.
That's the whole thing. Like, everybody, the people who went after, that's the whole weird thing is, anybody who knows what I do knows that I don't live in scarcity, I live in abundance. So when I'm there, I was like, oh, where's the Federalist at? Oh, no, actually, Sean Davis is next door, right? Oh, the Daily Wire, they're going to be on Air Force One, right? So I'm getting all this like jealousy from people like, why would you be jealous of me? All you got to do is DM me, and I'll give you the number.
And there's nobody that elevates people like
Yeah.
Cerno did. Like, Cerno's been elevating me and retweeting me, and we've been DMing for years before we were able to meet. So I don't understand why people, like, my whole thing is, I don't understand why people attack other influential news people online. Like, save your smoke for the Democrats or criticize our actual political figures. Yeah. But anytime, like, if I'm just thinking like, oh, well, Cerno did this or Tim Pool's this or whatever, it just reeks of jealousy and like scarcity.
You just got to work every single day, do your best.
Yeah.
And I understand the FOMO, but my thing is like, if I saw Mike Cernovich on a 200-foot yacht smoking cigars, having a party with all the finest champagnes, I wouldn't get angry and pound the table. I'd be like, yo, I got to ask Mike to invite me.
That's kind of a right wing thing.
What do I need to
though.
do to get there?
That's kind of a right wing thing though. The left is the kind of the group that are angry and upset when they see people that are successful, the jealousy kind of thing. You see that on the left all the time, and on the right you kind of have people that are more like, yeah, man, I want to be in that position, or I'm excited for them, I'm happy because I know he worked hard. That's just kind of something that is is normal on the right.
So real quick, we have a correction. People are saying that Alina Habba's talking about the Mar-a-Lago raid boxes, not Epstein.
Oh,
Really?
Okay.
Right.
Well, there you go. The
Right.
correction.
She should
correction
definitely
Rob Smith.
Right. And
clear that up there.
Yeah.
There's literally a response from someone saying, where are the Epstein files, though? And why in the world did you and Pam Bondi go on TV,
Yeah.
say you saw them, and that it was sick, but then we've seen nothing already?
Yeah, that's where my mind went when I saw the answer. So correction.
And that's why I
got it.
did, yeah, and that's why I was cautious. But like Rob and I were talking about last night, one of the way the media world kind of went is I remember 2015, 2016. Tim was still with another outlet. He was the innovator of technology. He was the early adopter to drones and 360, and that me and Posobiec would embed with the rioters before anybody knew who we were, and we would like take over their microphones and be like, hey, ho, ho, Bill Clinton is a you know what. And people who weren't around then don't get it, but we had other stuff going on, and now with the people who are during their 20s and they're like, oh, I want to be an influencer, it became a career, so they're more motivated by covetousness and jealousy, whereas the people who are OGs, everybody was like, dude, we just stumbled into this world, you know? I just picked up
Covetousness,
a phone.
that's a word.
Yeah.
Good word.
Thou shalt not covet.
Yes.
I just want to give a PR bit of advice to everybody out there. I saw a handful of people tweeting things like, I can't believe these were the people that were chosen. You know, the hard work that I did and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, no. That's going to get you banned from all future events. You guys are no.
And I got legal bills I can show them, and they're welcome to all this work. That's great. I'll be glad to show my legal bills, and I'll be glad to get reimbursement for everything that all these people did. I would love that when I had $150K in legal fees for this stuff, at least. I quit looking at one point.
So where do you think the next move is going to be in the Epstein files? Do you think Pam Bondi is actually going to release anything? Friday's come and gone, and we haven't seen anything.
I think that the public reaction was so strong that they have to. That's where the 4D chess comes in. That maybe we were, and I don't want to say set up because I don't feel like it was set up, but maybe the people knew that this would end the stonewalling at SDNY and at the FBI, and the people really want this stuff, right? So we're going to have to get something. My personal opinion is that, and this is where another criticism is like, oh, you're covering up for Israel or whatever, because there was an old clip where they were like, oh, it was a Mossad operation. And I go, guys, whatever it was above whatever Mossad is. Because if it's Mossad, you couldn't talk about it, right? That's how dumb these people are. If you're allowed to talk about something, then that thing you're talking about is not really the thing that they're afraid of you talking about, right? And if you look at what gets people censored, nobody will get censored for claiming it was involved with Mossad. Nobody would. But if you talked about certain health issues a year or two ago, boom, you got banned. Mm-hmm. So people think, oh, I'm so edgy. And I go, no, whatever it is it's the thing above Five Eyes. It's the thing above all of these other entities, and somehow that means it's covering up. It's like, no, it's actually the opposite. I think we're dealing at the level of like sovereign wealth, trillionaires. Not just because there's things above them. We're talking about the royal wealth. We're talking about the trillionaires, right? And who's the trillionaires? We don't know. And if you didn't know, they're a trillionaire. So all these people think they're so edgy. Oh, you're so edgy, Mossad. Dude, it's something bigger, some superstructure.
And this is what I think about it with the 4D chess, idea, right? You have to understand when you're doing this and you're kind of like in this game and you're being, invited to do this or do that, whatever. It's like, think about the level to which you are useful, right? So you are being used in a certain way. What am I being used for? Am I being used for the good of the country? I'm being used for the good of whatever. And I think that that's something that you have to think about when you decide to do these things. I think it just kind of is the name of the game and part of the industry we're in.
There's two different categories. So one is, I don't think anybody who's really familiar with me would be like, well, he's an influencer. I'm an influencer who got John Conyers to resign from Congress because I uncovered sexual harassment documents that nobody knew about. That's not what an influencer says. Hey, look at me. Here's my hot take on like the issues of the day. But I'm a hybrid because I still always interlate a lot of personality to it too. So people who are new to this world or new to me, they're like, oh, Cerno is an influencer, but nobody actually thinks of me in that way. It's more of a hybrid thing. But to your point about, like being useful, that's where, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger actually, they stole this quote from me for his book. Years ago, I wrote an article like this, and before I saw it anywhere else, but it was Stay busy, be useful.
Yeah.
That's how I live my life. What'd you do today? What'd you do today? Who'd you help? What'd you do? Oh, you weren't. And a lot of these people who are mad are useless. And that's why nobody wants to deal with them.
If you cannot be used, you are useless.
Yeah.
The big story here is that the White House brought in prominent personalities in media who have bigger followings than a lot of corporate press to break a story.
Yes.
And the reaction online throughout the day was outrage over this.
That was the weird part. I would imagine that we or humans would be supporting just independent media getting an uplift. That was what I wanted to see. I kind of tried to almost ignore the anger, the outrage, but it was there. Some of it was.
My reaction seeing these photos was to reach out immediately. First thing I did was I tweet, any of you want to come on the show?
Yeah.
And then I talked with Mike, I talked to a handful of other people, and I was like, what happened? Tell me everything. I could not do that if it was the New York Times walking out with these binders. We would have been sitting there being like, once again, the legacy media controlling the narrative. This time around, it was like, holy crap, my friend is telling me the inside scoop on this release.
All right, so let me ask a question because I missed all of this stuff. I was doing some other stuff yesterday when this happened. So everybody that was outraged, right, were these real, like, the regular people that consume our content and follow us, right? Like, were those people outraged, or was it just people that are influencers or news people or whatever?
I saw
right?
Laura Loomer get pissed off, and I mean,
Well,
she's
that's-
known for doing that.
Yes,
Because she wasn't included.
with all due respect, Laura was angry that nobody was publishing anything from it.
Yeah.
And then she said she reached out to Higher Right Check saying, give us the file.
And then she
why-
learned
nobody's-
about the embargo. She
and
didn't
then
know there was an embargo.
It was after
No one knew.
no. To be fair, after the embargo, largely there was still limited stuff coming out, and then Laura was working as well as Nick's order to publish a full scan of the documents. There were a lot of people that were prominent media personalities who were very angry.
Yeah.
Regular people were angry. The documents was a nothing. It was a nothing.
Oh, it was
burger.
nothing burger.
Yes.
Okay.
It was,
Got it.
there were two dimensions. There was the dimension of what he said. The people who were mad kind of scapegoated us because there were a number of things. So one thing, the only criticism I thought was kind of legitimate, even though it was a lie as relates to me, they were like, oh, you were smiling. And it was like, no, they were like, you were flaunting the binder. No, somebody, if you walk outside and there's a camera, what are you like supposed to cry? What is your reaction?
It's a candid picture. You're
Yeah,
walking
okay,
by.
yeah.
Like,
To be fair, Higher Right Check did do a little dance and
Yeah.
like show off the
Okay,
binder.
so this is the thing.
I'm not saying anything about anybody.
So this is the thing when,
I got no beef.
this is the thing when you're invited to these things. And I remember like during the DeSantis days in Florida, there were a bunch of Florida influencers, and I had went to some dinner with the governor after this whole thing had happened, and we didn't post pictures, whatever. But there were a lot of the prominent Florida-based conservatives. I think it was like Rubin and Lisa Booth and all these people are people that I know, right? But they took this smiling photo behind Governor DeSantis at his desk. And then I remember seeing all of these people who I knew personally just get totally dragged. And then in my mind, it was like, okay, you have to watch those kinds of photo ops. Like, you have to watch it because, number one, not only are you going to inspire hatred from people that were not invited into the room, people are going to start questioning everything that you're putting out.
So you mean don't gloat?
I wouldn't call it gloating. I would just call it being cautious. I've been into a couple of meetings like this, literally since, what is it, about to be March? Like, I've been to about 2 or 3 things of this year, and there were opportunities to be photographed with certain people, and I declined because it's not personally right for me.
I don't take that Trump thing.
Yeah.
I just got so
But that's
mad at
Trump,
everybody.
though.
No, but I wouldn't even done it if it wasn't for yesterday. Because
Yeah.
I want to just put fuel on the fire.
Yeah.
Be like, you guys are mad. But I'm the same way as you. There's no pic of me with Don Jr. anywhere.
you got to watch that stuff.
And I don't cloud chase anyway. Like I don't think we have a picture together.
I don't think so. And I kind of been thinking about this for a while. I think we should, to a certain degree, not cloud chase necessarily, but I was thinking about how I never even say my own name introducing this show.
Right.
And I'm like, I get it's called Timcast, but
Right.
everyone else says I'm so-and-so, here's what I do, here's where you can find me. I don't.
Right.
And I'm like, maybe the show would be more successful. I actually tried to get photos with prominent individuals or something, but that's just not what I care about.
Right.
You know,
yeah, that show's such a huge flop. Yeah,
but I mean,
no
think-
influence at all.
No, but what I'm saying, I guess, is any PR person would say Tim doesn't do the right thing when it comes to marketing his show. I don't get photos with my guests.
Yeah.
Like me and Mike have never smiled for a photo to post on Instagram.
And I'll give you an example. The only reason he wasn't at that thing yesterday was the guy, and that's why I made a text intro. The guy was like, "Oh, I didn't even know Tim left West Virginia anymore." So in a way, it's a marketing failure because they're like, "Oh, Tim's got his thing, and he doesn't travel anymore. He's got a kid." So in a way, you can write yourself out of the mix.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, Cerno hangs out with his kids and mountain bike." He's not going to be out
And I'm
here.
telling you, I texted some of the people that were behind yesterday, and like with me personally, like nobody knows where I am in the world all
Right.
the time, because like I'm in Miami, kind of like doing my South Beach thing, like playing my tennis or whatever. I'm in DC more often. But what I've noticed about spending more time in DC is that like putting yourself in the mix
Yes.
is a part of all of this stuff. And I've seen success in the stuff that I'm doing.
Well, you got to
just by
remind people
going
what
out
you
more.
do. I mean,
That you
I
exist.
ran into a thing where I needed to hire a CFO for a company, and a good friend of mine had left his investment banking thing, and I didn't even know he did it because he didn't think to be like, hey, bro, I'm a free agent now. So I was like commiserating with him. I'm like, dude, the books are a mess and blah. He's like, oh, I'll do it for you. I was like, well, how can you do it for me? You're with whatever firm. He goes, no, I left 6 months ago. So the marketing lesson for people is there's a point where you could be too aggressive and ask for too much,
Sure.
and that gets great. Don't be asking me how to get to the White House.
Yeah.
But it's good to remind people, oh, actually, I left the Daily Caller, and I'm at the Daily Wire now, and I'm on a new beat. So like Luke, Luke is hanging out at the event. He does great work for the Daily Wire. Rosnick, I'm bad with names.
Rosiak,
He breaks a lot of great news.
Yeah.
He's here, and it's good to just let people kind of know what you're up to,
Yeah.
whether you're trying to be in this world or if you're an accountant. Hey, I'm an accountant. I'm taking on new clients, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Tim Pool is available for all appearances in the DC metropolitan area and tri-state.
Oh,
And Tim Pool wants to be on Air Force One.
Indeed.
Tim
Yeah.
Pool will be
And
on Air Force One.
I haven't put it out to the universe right now. Like, I would love to go on Air Force 2 and do. Yeah, I think I was talking to Raheem because I'm about this. Covering JD's trip to Munich.
Yep.
And live tweeting that stuff and doing that stuff. That's a really, for me, like particularly on Twitter, a really effective use of Twitter.
Yep.
And I came up to DC and I was doing the Hexeth confirmation. I like live tweeted it, and then there's all these protesters and all this stuff. And I got that stuff in real time on Twitter, and that was awesome.
Well, let's actually talk about the White House today.
Yeah.
I mean, you were mentioning this earlier that you would have rather been at the White House today than yesterday.
Yeah, so yesterday during our briefing, we were told, because I was like, the influencer thing, I want to be in the room. I want to be where the drama is. And they go, oh, no, they're just signing the mineral deal. This is actually going to be dumb. Enjoy your time. Because I could have got credentialed for the thing today, right? And so I'm in an Uber on my way to the gym. I did my intervals today, my hard cardio, my intervals today. And all of a sudden I see these clips. And I didn't feel jealousy for people who were there, but I had massive FOMO.
Yes.
I was like, I could have been there. I flew all the way out here. And I left my kids, and I'm not even here. How did I?
This moment was incredible.
Yeah.
Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. I think Phil was talking about this, that the first 40 minutes of the meeting were actually rather fine. I saw a great breakdown that said Zelensky is talking with Trump. Trump is actually being a bit deferential, saying, we're going to help you out. We want to help Ukraine. And then Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, decides to start arguing with them, being combative.
Yeah.
And now they leave without a deal. And if the U.S. says no, the war is over.
Zelensky landed in the United States aware of what the president's position was. Like, he knew what the administration thought. This was basically just supposed to be a photo op. It was just so that they could get some FaceTime. The intent was to kind of like mend the bad blood they had. And Zelensky made the issue when they had a disagreement about what kind of security guarantees they were going to be. Zelensky wants Ukraine to be in NATO, and Zelensky wants American troops to be in Ukraine to guarantee the success, or to guarantee the safety, and to guarantee that Putin won't be an aggressor. The United States, essentially, their position is, we want to have rights to the minerals and stuff, and so we want to have economic deterrence, basically, because if the United States has businesses in Ukraine, that will deter Putin from taking any more territory. It'll deter a war, because the likelihood of having some kind of incident with Americans dying raises, and so that will be the deterrent. That wasn't good enough for Zelensky. Normally, this kind of negotiation will happen behind closed doors, so they can swear at each other, call each other's names, be aggressive, be angry, and then when you go ahead and talk to the actual press, everybody's kind of calm and chill. But Zelensky made the issue in front of the press, and that was a terrible move, because Trump had already had a sour taste. Zelensky came to Pennsylvania and was campaigning for Joe Biden. So then to come to the new administration, I think this is the first time that Zelensky's met with President Trump, and to do that in front of the press and make an issue that's bad, it's a terrible way to try and force a change in policy. When he knew that the United States had already made a decision on what they were looking for.
I do have a clip here. This is a very long one, so I don't know if it's the. Do we have audio working on this? I'm not sure if we have the audio on this one. No.
This is such a good video. This is like, I highly recommend this video, dude.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't think we have audio.
This
on
is great.
Seeing that begging grubby little welfare queen Zelensky basically get dressed down and have his butt handed to him by Trump and J.D. Vance. It was the moment that Americans have been waiting for the past 3 years. Hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
to Ukraine.
I was shocked. On our way here, we saw some canvassers for the ACLU.
Yeah, I
They
saw
were
them too.
they were waving to people, and we talked a little bit before the show about I used to do fundraising. You're pitching, you're selling, you are begging someone, please help me, give me your money.
Yes.
I was flabbergasted at Zelensky sitting down with the most powerful military, the utmost wealth, where he is in a position that if the U.S. says, I'm sorry, we're done, the war ends overnight, and he had the nerve to argue, you don't know what you're talking about, what reports have you seen, to J.D. Vance, instead of saying, I understand, I'm sorry, but please, we really do need your help. Let me know what you need, because we will do anything. This is a man who doesn't understand the position he's in. The arrogance was shocking.
Yeah.
That moment where he said, and this was right before Trump went off, when he said, well, you have a beautiful lake, well, perhaps one day you'll see, My mind was blown at that. The audacity, the arrogance to sit there next to Trump, and man, Trump said what everybody has been wanting to say to that little welfare queen for years. It was an incredible moment. It really was.
I know it was.
I'm glad the cameras were on.
Yeah, when JD started talking is when Zelensky snapped. Like, he could handle it. I didn't watch the first 20, 30 minutes. I popped in for the last 15 of salaciousness, and JD just goes at him, and Zelensky's probably like, who is this guy? Now this is VP?
Yeah.
Staging authority over him. I'm the president. I'm the leader.
I think one of the big moments was when J.D. Vance mentioned the Biden administration.
Yeah.
And then Zelensky got all angry. Instead of recognizing the power structure, the sentiment of the American people, and the position he was in, he had the nerve to talk and snap back.
Yeah, he interrupted JD, and then that's when Trump really dropped the hammer, when he interrupted JD. Trump doesn't have time. I mean, doesn't seem to have time for disrespect.
Yeah,
for
and the thing with JD is that the JD shade is classy. The JD shade is very classy. It's very thoughtful when JD dresses you down. But then when Trump just drops the hammer and he dresses you down like, your boss, like, I worked at KFC when I was like 19 years old in the military. Like when your boss is like screaming at you because like you really effed up, right? And so that
Well,
was
didn't
just
Zelensky
great.
say something like, I read it as a veiled threat. The clip, Trump said something like, you're in trouble and you don't know it or something. And Zelensky said something like, well, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's when Trump
That
snapped.
moment.
Trump's like, don't tell us how
when he
we're going to.
snapped.
It was a threat.
It was.
When I watched that, I was like, you worm. And in my full, again, because I was in the Uber, even the Uber driver's like, turn that up. He goes, what? And I go, I don't know what's going on. I'm just listening to it too. He goes, I can't believe he did that. And I was like, I don't.
You could, if you looked at the body language of other people in the room, I believe it's the Ukraine
she's like,
ambassador was literally face palming.
Yeah.
And if you look at Marco Rubio, he was
like,
staring ice knives at Zelensky. I mean, and look, the Secretary of State he was confirmed with a unanimous vote. He's essentially kind of the most, I guess, swamp creature that was in the room, the most establishment guy in the room. And he still, right after Zelensky left, he was tweeting his support for what President Trump said. Most of the people that are upset with President Trump are either, one, ideologically possessed already, and no matter what happened, they were going to hate Trump, or they only saw the 2-minute video and they're basing their judgment based on only that. You have to see the whole context. You have to see that they were actually perfectly fine getting along until Zelensky really made a bad decorum move. It was outside of the bounds of normal negotiations, and he really blew it.
He vindicated everything. I was thinking about that when I was walking over here. I was like, man, imagine you're some swampy Republican like Lindsey Graham, who's, we got to worship this hero. I'm like, dude, this video was a gift. And I even posted something like trolly, because I went onto the alternative universe of CNN, and they're all going, well, today was a big victory for Putin. So then I posted something like, was Zelensky under compromise from Putin? Because today clearly gave Putin a win, using their language against them, because that's how dumb these people on CNN are. And I want to just thank Zelensky, because all he did was vindicated everything that we said.
Yeah.
This is a welfare project. This guy is, like when Trump said, you're not a tough guy. We all wanted to say that, bro. Zelensky, you're a cross-dressing comedian. No offense to those who are. I'm actually pretty tolerant. But you put on your little, remember you'd watch G.I. Joe as a kid?
Oh,
They'd
yeah.
wear that
little
camo.
fatigue.
Yeah, fatigue. I know what you're doing. You're a
Yeah.
little G.I. Joe figure.
Look, he's an actor.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, this guy was an actor.
Right.
This guy was an actor and a dancer, and he was on the Dancing with the Stars of the Ukraine.
Yep.
So he's playing a role,
Yep.
and he's been playing this role. And I think that the reason that he was so emboldened to act the way that he did today is because he's been propped up by all of the crooks that we just kicked out of D.C.
Yes. Yeah.
He has been propped up by these Democrats. He's been propped up by Hollywood. He's been propped up by the mainstream media that he was performing for. And so it was so kismet and so of the moment that we're in right now that this is what happened to him.
I
And
think
he crawled out of there with his tail between his legs.
Think about what Trump is asking. I want mineral rights. We're going to give you weapons. We're going to support you in this war. You're going to win the war. What do we get in exchange? It's a very simple negotiation. Why should the United States fund and basically run their war for them for nothing?
Yeah.
And Zelensky had the nerve to say, you should. That's why.
And not only that, it's he's making demands about entry into NATO. And that's the thing that Putin says he doesn't want. I'm not in any way like pro Putin. I know I'm the guy that's like going to say that Putin started the war, he invaded. But at the same time, you have to understand that from Putin's perspective, Ukraine cannot join NATO. That's been a sticking point, and the United States and the rest of NATO should say, no, Ukraine can't join NATO. We'll come up with other creative ways to ensure your security, but you can't join NATO. And that's the sticking point that Zelensky wants.
They demand that Donald Trump disparage Vladimir Putin mid-negotiation.
Yeah, it's dumb.
And that's psychotic.
Yeah.
I have no problem. I'm not a politician. I'm not in government. So I got nothing. I got no dog in this race. Vladimir Putin is a scumbag. I think he's a terrible guy. That's fine. If I was going to negotiate with the man on a peace deal, I'd be saying he's very smart. He's a clever guy. Don't underestimate and don't disrespect him, because I'm trying to win favor.
Yes.
Zelensky doesn't seem to understand that. You can hate Donald Trump. You can think he's the dumbest guy in the world, and you're about to ask him for $100 billion.
Yeah.
You kiss his ass.
The whole
You get
of the
more
left
flies
is
with honey than you do with vinegar,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the whole of the left wants to see someone that actually threatens Putin, but then doesn't actually do anything. They want the United States to talk the big talk, as opposed to speak softly and carry a big stick. They want to speak loudly and then not actually do anything to back it up. That was the way with Barack Obama. That was the way with Joe Biden, and they want Donald Trump to behave that way, and that's not how you enter these negotiations.
And real quick before I have to go in here in a few, do you guys want to talk about like a download of what was talked about and that got buried in all the like lunacy and everything?
Yeah.
So the foreign policy thing, there's a couple of things especially of interest to all of us, but Darren Beatty is dismantling the whole censorship complex within the State Department, which is amazing. That was what was frustrating about yesterday, is I had all these notes and I was ready to do this. And Putin did come up in the briefing, and the briefing was just very like real politic, which is, hey, do you guys not know that Russia has more tactical nukes than any other country, and second to us has more strategic nukes than anyone else? And do you know that Russia's actually very close to China, and that the closer that they get together, that means Russia has to intervene for China? So if China invades Taiwan, then Russia kind of has to get involved, because China can call the tune to that. So maybe dealing with Putin as a rational actor, because this is a problem people have. It's easy for us to say Putin is like a bad guy. Okay, great. There's a lot of bad people in the world. Whatever, right? But you still have to deal with them. That's where this like childishness comes in with a lot of people in left-wing media, and unfortunately in the right-wing media, is great. You can vent your spleen. Because there was a lot of controversy about some people visiting the U.S. yesterday, and so I was like, thank God I missed that whole conversation because of this other nonsense. But there's like people just act like they can just pretend somebody doesn't exist, and then you can vanish them, which you can't do. And then they act like a world leader is someone you can just ignore. And they don't think about, okay, so what if Russia gets closer to China? Mm-hmm. Then China moves on Taiwan. China's calling the tune. So maybe it would be better for us to deal with Russia in a more responsible way, because in that we have a stronger interest in Taiwan than we do Ukraine. So if you look at a rational foreign policy, you would say, okay, we'll get the minerals from Ukraine. We'll tell Putin, hey, you can have these eastern places anyway. They all spoke Russian. They never even wanted to be part of Ukraine. That's why I hate the whole Putin invaded. Putin invaded places that were being bombed by the Azov battalion, the Tornado battalion. The militias were killing people who were ethnic Russian. This was all documented, but then we got to pretend like history started in 2022. So as a foreign policy thing, the Trump world is very adult. The adult is it going to make us safer, stronger, more prosperous? That was like, and people can give us a talking point, whatever. Here's the talking points. The foreign policy is, will it make us safer, stronger, and more prosperous? So is beefing with Putin going to make us safer? How? Is it going to make us more prosperous? How? Is it going to make us stronger? How? We're depleting our weapon stockpiles. So there is a logic to the foreign policy, where with the moralism is very nice. We can all be moral purists all the time because we're all so holy, and everybody else are the sinners. But we're so holy. We're priests. But Rubio and them, they're kind of just, we're going to be adults here. And if this isn't going to make us safer, stronger, more prosperous, then we have to do something different.
You could argue that challenging another world power, if they become weaker, you de facto become more powerful just relative to the power structure. But if you have to weaken yourself in order for them to become weakened, then you've got an opportunity cost you need to measure. How much?
Well, it makes stronger China. It makes China stronger, though. So if you diminish Russia, then Russia becomes more under the thumb of China, so then China becomes stronger, because it isn't like this is me and you in a boxing match and we both kind of beat each other up. It's more like me and you are in a boxing match and Rob is waiting and he's like, okay, whoever's weaker now, I'm going to go clean up. I'm going to clean up, right? Yeah. It's a whole different ballgame.
As far as I can tell, 1989, Soviet Union falls. The oligarchs that split it up decided Sevastopol, Crimea is too dangerous to give to the Russian Federation because we got to nullify their power. We can't let them be the hegemon. So we'll get to the Ukraine. So Russia doesn't have Mediterranean seaport access, but there's still a bunch of Soviet Russian people living there. Right. 20 years go by, 15 years go by, and apparently they're getting bombed by the Azov battalion. Like, is it like ethnic cleansing? I don't know a lot about what led up to.
You can look all that up before it got scrubbed. Pretty horrific stuff.
Well, the Ukraine stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's very interesting because before, we started waving the yellow and blue flags for Ukraine a couple of years ago when we had to launder hundreds of billions of dollars, there was even articles of mainstream news outlets like the New York Times, et cetera, about how corrupt Ukraine was, about how it was a hotbed of corruption in all kinds of ways. And then, like you said, that stuff gets scrubbed. And so now, hey, let's all send hundreds of billions of dollars of our taxpayer money that is still there. It like before we started talking about this today, like I would say in the past 4 to 6 months, you would just wake up sometimes and be like, oh my God, we're still sending money there. You just read some news article about another $100 billion going there. Like this thing is still going on.
What did Trump say? 350 billion?
They cut off economic funding to rebuild their electrical grid.
Yes.
Apparently, every month they had to spend $100 billion to fix their grid, or 3 weeks or 2 weeks or something.
How many Ukrainians have already fled the country? Is it 20 million or some large number?
So the real story that you won't hear on all these pro-war podcasts, which is so funny, because it's funny to watch all these podcasters be like Slava Ukraini, and they're not even American. I'm like, why don't you join the Ukrainian Legion?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't want to do that. So what happened is because Dan Crenshaw, who I don't want to bash because I feel like everybody does, and Dan has done good work on psychedelic research with veteran suicide. So for me, call me a sellout, but I handle the Dan situation with more delicacy than I would someone else.
I think he deserves a little bit more grace than a lot of people.
Yeah. So I don't want to come off as bashing Dan because he really has done some good work in issues that really do matter. However, when he went at with Glenn Greenwald on Piers Morgan, and Dan was saying, the fighting men and the war of attrition. And it's like, no, 650,000 people fled Ukraine. They had to kidnap people and force them to the front lines. The people of Ukraine don't actually want to fight this war. Mm-hmm. The men of Ukraine, they left. And they left because Ukraine was a corrupt dump with no real economy. So if you had any kind of vision or aspiration or enough money, you left. So the tragedy of Ukraine, and I've said this so many times, but for whatever reason, people aren't smart enough to realize it. The people who died in the war in Ukraine, spiritually, I'm closer to them than I am to Zelensky. Spiritually, they are closer to me than they are to Zelensky. Because those are people like me who would, like Rob and other people who would be like, I care about my country, I'm going to rush to serve. and that nationalistic fervor took over. When if you knew the real game was ethnically cleanse our own good people. The rich people can all leave, and then when it's time to rebuild, we'll become oligarchs again.
And
that was the real.
So
plan.
I have a quick correction. I said how many have fled? 20 million. Let me correct those numbers. The numbers I confused was since the end of the Soviet Union, the population has declined 20 million. That is the hard number. Since the war started, it's 7 million.
Right.
7 million people fled the country.
Out of how many? Do you know what the total population was?
So the numbers are, at the end of the Soviet Union, there was 52 million people. As of this month, it's 32 million.
That's rough.
So they declined a total of 20 million since the fall. But since the war started, they estimate 6.8 million Ukrainian refugees have fled the country.
And so let's think back to how controlled Twitter was, like how controlled social media was in the censorship world when this war first started. Because I remember, you would see all the CNN, the New York Times, and all the mainstream media, just this story about what was happening over there that just wasn't true. And I would just remember seeing sometimes videos of older men like literally getting yanked off the street, shoved into vans, being forced to fight when they obviously didn't want to fight this. So there was a story that was being sold to America about what was happening over there that was completely false. Now we know this.
Yeah. Oh, they all wanted to go, and you looked, and the guys looked like me.
Yeah.
No, that guy didn't want to go. And then the draft laws in Ukraine were being changed, where you couldn't draft people under 25, and they kept wanting to. It's like, well, wait a minute, hold on a second. If you're telling me the propaganda line that I hear from all these neocons and former leftists and all these people who I think are saboteurs actually working for intelligence agencies, if you tell me that the Ukrainian people want to fight the war, then they wouldn't have left the country and you wouldn't need a draft, right? Because I can tell you right now that if we were invaded by China, I wouldn't leave. I'm dying. I'm dying, right?
Well, so let's break down culturally why that is. I know who our founding fathers are. I know why we have reverence for them. I know about the great leaders during the civil strife, Bleeding Kansas, and Civil War period that we have great reverence for. I know why we have a constitution and the ethos that was born of this nation and born this nation. I will fight for that. If China landed a bunch of boats on the beaches of California, I'd say, what can I do? Mm-hmm. Ukraine means borderlands. Yeah. And I mean no disrespect, because I know I have friends that are Ukrainian, they fled the country already. It was during the Soviet Union, they were for 69 years occupied, suppressed, oppressed. Their thought leaders, their intellectuals were wiped out. When a war breaks out and Russia invades, I do know they have a history. I do know many of them are proud of that history, but it is dramatically different from the way we perceive the history of our country. So when someone storms into your nation, and your history is, for nearly 100 years, we were beaten down by a large oppressive force that starved our people, kidnapped our people, disregarded our people, and called our home the borderland. You don't have a tie to that. You have we just need to get out and take care of ourselves.
Look, the United States can keep supplying money longer than the Ukrainian people can supply fighting people. Like, you can literally kill, or the United States can literally fund more people than the Ukrainian has to go into the meat grinder there.
Well,
they have to do something to end this war.
The question is Vladimir Putin, who is more likely to impose what we refer to as the Zep Brannigan military strategy of sending wave after wave of your own men to die until the enemy gives up?
That's Russian tactics 101, though.
Yeah, right.
No, Russia.
Well, right.
That's Russia. The big myth that we have in America is that America won World War II as Russian bodies won World War II.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It was American steel and Russian blood that won.
I love the story of World War II is that the Russians mass-produced garbage weapons, but a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so their weapons notoriously they break. They notoriously their guns are painful to use. They bite. They're not particularly good. They're cheap. AKs are particularly effective. And you had with Germany and the Axis powers, we want powerful, well-made, strong, sturdy weapons. And Russia was like, don't care.
Yep.
Give me a steel box with guns
They're
in
all
it.
going to freeze anyway.
Right.
Bring it. Oh, yeah. But the thing about that was like Soviet tactics was meat grinder. I don't know if Russia's like that. I don't know. I don't think of them as Soviet at all.
Well, I mean, isn't that how they defeated Napoleon too? They just
the Eastern Russia is still an Eastern country, and the Eastern mindset is the way they see an individual life is different than Americans do. I noticed that in all my travels, and it's less of a we take it for granted. Individualism is actually a very weird thing. It isn't the norm. The norm, especially in the East, which Russia is Asiatic, is that we're the collective. It's Mother Russia, and you're dying for Mother Russia. It's a whole different thing. But the only way that I can, even though analogies have a lot of fears, the only way that I can try to ever explain Ukraine to normie Americans is I go, there's parts in El Paso, Texas that are almost all Mexican, right? No problem. Okay. Imagine we just allowed the KKK to start killing Mexicans, and I hope I don't get flagged, but it's a hypothetical, but imagine we allowed that. And then Mexico said, well, we're actually going to invade El Paso, Texas. Well, who do you think the Mexican ancestry people are going to side with?
Yeah.
They're going to be like, oh, wow, I mean, so Zelensky, if you go back and read, and this is where the Steelman case for Zelensky is actually, and this is what I truly believe, the Nazi militias were going to kill him. So he had to play ball in it, because if you look at what he ran under peace with Russia. He really did try to bring Azov to justice. They put a lot of these Tornado Battalion peoples in prison. They let them out once the war broke out, which was another thing that was suppressed in Western media. And if you read the files, it was real horrific stuff that they were in for. And people go, well, that's war. And I was like, well, sure, but why don't we talk about that? So my personal belief is that the oligarchs in Ukraine said, look, we can get rid of all the patriotic Ukrainians, send them off to die on a lie, and once it's time to rebuild, we get all this Western money, we'll have all the money to rebuild, and then all the people who left that are on podcasts and talking stuff, they'll all be project managers with little construction hats on, and they'll become little miniature oligarchs. And then but then we're the ones who are attacked for saying that, even though if you lay out that logic like that, nobody can refute it. Literally nobody can refute that logic.
I think one of the things with the Soviet Union and war was that they had bodies like Ukrainians where they could just dump wave after wave of their own men. So I guess the question now is, although it does appear to be the Russian strategy of we'll just throw as many men as possible until we win, Ukraine might actually have the edge on that, considering the people who the people who wanted to live and didn't want to fight fled, and the country is literally just capturing elderly men and women to force them to the front lines. Zelensky is completely willing to sacrifice elderly men and women to force on the front lines in a way that I don't know that Putin actually could maintain. And Putin's had to call in allies. He's working with China, he's working with North Korea to bring in more troops. I think, first of all, it's obvious. Without the U.S. support, if Trump says, we're done, the war's over instantly. But if we want to keep this fight up, the important point made is not my opinion. Other people deserve credit for this. Is these people cheering on the war, like these pro-war podcasts, they're basically saying, thank God we can sacrifice the Ukrainian lives so that they'll fight Putin and hurt him a little bit.
I mean, just for information, Ukraine's population is estimated at 38,980,000. Russia's
38 million, you mean?
Yeah, 38.
Right.
I'm sorry, 38 million. Russia's 143,997,000. So I mean, the number of Russians versus the number of Ukrainians is just, I mean, the numbers just don't work for Ukraine.
Yeah, I guess my point is I don't know that Putin would take a 20-year-old woman to go force him to fight.
No, he wouldn't, but he's using the working class conscripts. I mean,
right.
If you the way to criticize Putin is that he hasn't tapped into the rich kids of Moscow yet, or even the middle class, and that's what he's trying to avoid. So if you're Dan Crenshaw and you wanted to actually make a better, more coherent point instead of yelling at Glenn Greenwald, you would just say, look, Putin, if he has to tap in to the middle class kids and not the people who are in the Caucasus region and just poor farm kids, then he would face a lot of political pressure and maybe assassination pressure in Moscow. And that's a case to be made, but they don't even make that because I can think about these issues better than they can, which is unfortunate.
And let's not forget that, one of the things that Zelensky wanted, he wants American troops to get involved.
He does.
Like, that's what he really wants.
Yeah.
And he's been pushing for that. And I was actually shocked that he didn't get it from Biden, as weak as that administration was. But that's what he wants, which would basically, end up in World War III, which nobody wants, right?
This withdrawing funding to their electric grid is a big deal. It's the second. So we fund their military, and then the next most we spend on that country is rebuilding every 2 weeks their electric grid.
We fund their pensions. We fund their teachers. No. If you look at the numbers, we fund the whole entire country.
I've been reading a lot of propaganda today about it, but some people are saying Zelensky's out. He's done. He's got 2 weeks left. I don't know what you guys, if you've even thought of that far.
No.
Rick Grinnell retweeted something from somebody. I think it said something to the effect of they wanted Zelensky to stand down. They wanted him to stand down. I think that they wanted Zelensky impeached. Like they're done with it.
Oh yeah, one of his political opponents from jail made a
Yes,
video like,
that's
"Can we
what it
please
was.
impeach this guy? You guys
Yes.
see now the emperor has no clothes."
All right, guys, I gotta go to the party. Any questions about yesterday news or anything?
Favorite color?
We've shown the coins, right? The challenge coins.
Michael Cernovich.
Well, hey man, thanks for hanging
Right.
out. Thanks
yeah,
for,
yeah.
thanks for having us.
It was our
Thanks for hanging,
pleasure,
Mike.
and I look forward to seeing you guys there on Air Force One, and I will not be jealous at all. I'll be really happy.
Timcast IRL live from Air Force One
Yeah.
or 2, whichever.
great.
Either is good.
It's gonna happen.
Be
All right,
fun.
thank you, everybody.
Thanks for
See you,
hanging out,
Michael.
man.
Hey, thanks, Mike.
Cheers, guys.
Well, we've solved
the
all the
show
world's
rolls
problems
on.
as we often
There
do.
we are.
Hunger no longer.
There's cigars. There's a party. There's loud noises.
So what happens? White peace in Russia. This is inevitably what I see it coming down to is them just establishing like, you know what, war's over. Whoever has what, you keep it. We're taking the minerals. And Zelensky can do nothing except for stage a rebellion and then become the enemy of all, which would get him killed off immediately, I would think.
I think it's getting very obvious right now that everybody is tired of this, except for maybe Zelensky. Trump wants it over. Vance wants it over. We're tired of this. I don't even feel the fervor and the excitement for all of this stuff, even from the usual left-wing hacks. Or even some of the Republican hacks, that are, saying we have to stand with Ukraine. It just that their heart doesn't seem in it anymore.
Let's jump to the story from the Post-Millennial. Washington Post staffers quits. You can't actually see it in the screen, but it's okay. Rebel against Bezos' new mission for opinion section. For those that didn't hear the story, it's amazing. Bezos said the opinion section is now going to be about personal liberties and free markets. And the communists who work for the Washington Post threw a tantrum and stormed out. This is amazing. We were just hanging out with Mike Cernovich, who was basically saying, what we saw yesterday, by all means, everybody's mad at these influencers for whatever reason. Not everybody, but a lot of people. The White House decided to bring in prominent personalities instead of the corporate press to break a major story. Whatever you think, this is a major change in how the government has handled media in the past. And with this administration, we are going to see more transparency and independent voices getting access to government. This is amazing. Now, the Washington Post under Bezos is being told personal liberties and free market. The communist woke stuff is out. When these people rebel and quit, I can only say thank you for leaving.
No, please.
No, please.
So thank you for quitting. And honestly, okay, so look, my degree is in journalism from Columbia, right? I got my master's at Columbia. And I think that people have no idea. We think that we know that these people are whiny libs and leftists or whatever. There is this entire pipeline in mainstream media of these people. Even to when I was at Columbia and I was not even conservative at that point. I was kind of like independent asking questions because surprise, surprise, I thought that's what you were supposed to do in J school, in a J school master's program, right? And the looks that I would get when you would just ask basic questions about immigration, etc., things that you weren't supposed to ask. And people do not understand that these people are literally taken from, your Columbias, your Northwesterns, wherever, and they are in all of these newsrooms across the country. They are not curious. They don't see their job as journalists as to ask questions. Their job is to promote the liberal propaganda that they were born and raised with. And so, yes, they're doing us all a favor to quit because I believe in journalism. I believe in legacy media pieces. They need to be saved. And I think that Bezos is trying to save the Washington Post. But yeah, those people are doing us all a favor when they reveal themselves and they exit stage right.
I think so too. I'm glad to see it. I mean, I don't know the technically the insides, but it sounds like get out.
I'm trying
Change
to
the diet of the system. A bunch of the parasites flee the system.
If I'm not mistaken, Tim, you started out in the mainstream world, right?
Not necessarily. The first media I started doing was just activists on the ground live streaming.
Okay.
So I was doing live mobile streaming. It's really crazy how nobody does this anymore. Very few people do that on the ground reporting. And then for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And actually, I would say it's almost 2 years. And then I went to Vice. Vice was independent at the time. And then like a month after I joined them, Fox had bought a big investment. So I was kind of like, I rolled my eyes. And then from there, I did join an ABC News joint venture and actually worked out of the ABC News building in New York.
Yeah.
And oh boy, all the stories are true.
Yeah, they're all true.
How the mainstream media operates, the instruction, golden handcuffs. One example I like to give is how they had a presidential debate forum. They told me I was too white to be involved, despite the fact that I'm mixed race, as everybody knows. It's a trope. It's a meme. And I was denied that for the way I looked. That was the wokeness of the corporate press. It's all true.
And they're all like that. And the weird thing about me, even as somebody being, the black guy that was out here doing all this, but I wasn't the black guy that thought the way that you were supposed to think. So they will talk about how diverse the press corps, like their little White House beat reporters or the press corps or whatever, they're all diverse and they're white and they're black and they're Asian and they're Latino and they're biracial and all these different things. But they are just all liberals. And they all basically toe that line. That's why independent media is ascending. Mainstream media is kind of dying. I mean, it's dying a slow death. I believe that at this point right now, it is the undead. It is the undead. It's Walking Dead.
Well, I mean, look, it's MSNBC making money off zombie carriage fees, and they're realizing it's not going to last. But I do warn people: these liberal podcasters are gaining tremendous traction.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a period where I think over the past week, the number one podcast in the world actually was a liberal anti-Trump podcast that surpassed Rogan briefly.
Yeah,
Who was it? Do you know?
It was
Midas Touch.
Midas Touch. What I will say about that is that now that they know that independent media is ascending, they will put corporate dollars and dim dollars and all of that stuff. They will fund these people to the level that if you're a conservative or Republican independent journalist or whatever, like you couldn't dream of getting the kind of support that they're going to be giving to these guys.
I love this when I'm talking to like the Majority Report people, and they keep running this narrative that we get behind the scenes corporate money and things like this. And I told this to Cenk Uygur. I said, we've sold ads, and everybody listening. Okay, this is it. We're a big podcast. I think yesterday we were the 7th biggest live show in the world, and simultaneously the 26th biggest because we're on Rumble and YouTube. Mm-hmm. If you combine them both, we were number 2. We've been able to sell ads for $50,000 for one read. That's not typical. It's not common. It's not really. But sometimes you can make that money. What do we do with it? We do field events like this, which are expensive and difficult. We try and invest in community building. It's not about getting wealthy off this, but we are not getting secret corporate billionaire dollars from industrialists behind the scenes. It's a lie they have to maintain to discredit us. And so when they say, why aren't we doing well? Well, it's actually quite simple. They are bad at business.
Yeah.
And I said that to Cenk Uygur when he was like, you got to be getting, we don't get these ad dollars. And I was like, then you're bad at business. He goes, well, no, we're not. And I'm like, clearly you are. We do standard sales through corporations that have ad offices in New York City. We're not doing anything special. There's no secret meeting at TPUSA where Charlie Kirk brings in the head of ExxonMobil to fund any of this stuff. That's not true. So what we're going to see now, while I bring this up to say, in defense of many of these liberals, they are not, as much as David Pakman liked to run this segment where he claimed I, along with Milo, were accusing him of getting USAID money. I never said that. No, I think they're making money off of clickbait, political content that the people want and are looking for new venues to find it. And they're making a lot of money off programmatic ads and default sales, but they don't know how to run a media business the way meritocratically developed individuals do. So on the right, which includes liberals at this point, post-liberals and disaffected liberals, you have people who built from the ground up, and largely on the left, you have a Democrat nonprofit bought ads, I'm not going to get specific, but you have a lot of political funding. And I'm not trying to accuse them of doing anything untoward, but a lot of the activist media, take a look at Media Matters.
Yeah.
This is not organically grown meritocratic individuals. This is political power.
And it's all propped up. Yeah. It's all propped up, and they're doing this thing now. And they're doing this thing now where they will find these dim influencers that are trying to prop a lot of money into, but then they connect them to mainstream media stuff. Like, what is CBS this morning doing? A segment on some dim influencers on TikTok, right? It's not organic. It's not real.
I got you. Caitlin Collins reportedly makes $3 million a year.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Where did she come from?
And Daily Caller.
Daily Caller.
Does anybody who works in this space? Oh, actually, you know what? I'm not going to rag on the lady. Don Lemon's a good example. Okay,
I'm just going to bring him up, please.
He's got 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. More power to him. He gets maybe like 10 to 30,000 per video. That's not bad for a small entry-level podcaster who's been in the space for a few years. Don Lemon was an anchor, primetime on CNN for a decade plus?
A decade plus.
He did not have the talent nor the merit to be in such a position. He was placed there, and his notoriety was gifted to him from a pedestal.
Yep.
Whereas in the independent media space, most of the personalities you see built it from the ground up slowly over time. It is no mystery why Cat Turd, of all people on on X, built a big following, it's not because someone came to him and said, we have a plan. We're going to give you $1 million to make a profile called Cat Turd. No, it's a guy with opinions who every day watched the news, voiced his opinions, built up a following, and became prominent through merit.
It's worth noting that a lot of the people that are on the left, that the left seems to be trying to lift up, people like Hassan Piker, who just again today was calling for the death of a public figure.
Whoa, what?
Yeah, he straight up said I made a remark about Rick Scott and said someone should kill him.
Wow.
There's also people like there's consistent
in a video game, I'm sure.
No, he did. Well,
he didn't caveat it.
He didn't. There was no caveat. It was a straight up calling for someone to do something, and that's not odd on the left anymore.
Well, it's not just that. It's numerous corporate press outlets have advocated for and directed their audiences to follow these people.
Yeah,
there are some individuals on the left that I don't want to drag because they're not abject evil.
I will.
They're just liberals. But the New York Times has run stories saying the new Joe Rogan and things like this.
Yeah.
And then these people from these stories get 1 million subs overnight and instantly become millionaires through the institutions empowering them.
And then it's not real.
And to be fair, I'm not saying that every liberal ever has no merit and did not build up their channel. I'm saying the tendency for the establishment left has been powerful voices were propped up by a corporate institution, and on this side, in spite of censorship, we have clawed our way to our position.
And you brought up Don Lemon earlier, and I want to get back to that because he is the most pure example of somebody who literally does not know who he is when there's not a team of producers and a team of executives propping him up. He had the biggest platform, for a decade plus. He's flailing on digital media. He's attacking Megyn Kelly. He's running up to people on. I saw some video of him running up to people on a subway train with doctored photos of himself. And so this person has no idea who he is outside of a news set, outside of people writing the scripts. And I was talking to a producer. I will not name the network. I will not name the show. But this producer was talking about a particular person that is talking about, well, I don't like how this script is. Well, bro, write it yourself. Right? And so a lot of these people are so propped up, they are struggling in this space because they have not figured out who they are. Fundamentally, they've not figured out who they are, and they've not had to do the hard work to figure that out.
Yeah, it requires
what I love?
you got to become a producer. I want to hear what you
you're a producer.
Megyn Kelly leaves network television. She leaves Fox. She tries to go to NBC. They fire her for the stupidest reason imaginable.
It was ridiculous.
She starts her own podcast, her own channel. She has 3.5 million subscribers on YouTube. She has one of the top 10 podcasts in the world.
Yes.
She routinely gets hundreds of thousands of views. That looks like somebody with wit and merit who deserved to be in a talent position, who proved it on their own after the fact.
And the thing that I love about Megyn Kelly is in her show is that it's journalism. You know what Megyn Kelly thinks about things when she decides that she wants to go for a top. You know what she feels about men and women's sports, right? Like biological men, like that whole thing. You know what she feels about that. You know that she felt strongly enough about Trump to go to that rally. But 90% of the show is actual legitimate journalism. It's actual questions about what's going on. It's bringing people on that are actual experts, and there is news value in that. There's value in that to the listener. I'm not, look, my podcast is a lot of, kind of like off the cuff stuff about what I think, but I'm even transitioning that to do a little bit more news because that is what is of value to the viewer. I think that Megyn Kelly probably wouldn't be as extremely successful as she is if it was just, hey, I'm Megyn and this is what I think every single day, right? So she works hard at it.
I used to think that was who she was in like 2008, 9. I was like, she's a warmonger. Get her out here. She's just another Hannity. But then, people evolve drastically.
Yeah.
What did you, do you still find yourself watching this, like the, whatever you call the mass media, the MSNBC, CNN, do you watch it? Watch the ship go down? Are you like watching it?
I try not to. I definitely delighted when, Joy Reid got canned earlier this week. That was wonderful because that was like literally one of the most hateful people on cable news, and seeing her downfall has been quite delightful. And, I made a tweet a couple of weeks ago that I was in some hotel room. I was somewhere traveling to go do something. The MSNBC was on. I think the guy at 8 p.m., Chris Hayes. And he was freaking out about whatever was going on in DC that day. And I was like, I'm watching this show, and everything that Chris Hayes is freaking out about are things that I think are just incredible. Are things that I'm like, this is a highlight reel of every awesome, incredible thing that happened today. So I do watch some of this stuff because I do want to know where the conversation is, because you have to know where their minds are at. And I hope that they just do not get the memo about this stuff until at least after the next election.
I was kind of glad to hear that in a way that podcast, what was it called? The biggest podcast on earth last week? Eclipse Rogan for a moment. What was it called?
Midas
Touch. That it's a pressure valve. We used to talk about this show as like it's a pressure valve for the people that are being suppressed by the media. So now we're in it's like the whole situation has been flipped around. You see MSNBC going down, Joy Reid's canned. There needs to still be a pressure valve for those people. I'll go on Facebook and the rage and just complete utter insanity that people are going through right now.
Is Facebook just liberal?
No. Okay, so here's the thing about Meta and Facebook. So I got a Facebook page with 600,000 followers or something like that, and I put a steady stream of content every single day. And this is what I say about Facebook. Facebook is like the Fox News of the internet for me. Because all of those people, I used to do a lot of Fox. I still love Fox. Used to do a lot of hits back in the day. I'm focusing energy on doing more things right now, but I do a lot of content on Facebook Meta. And I'm like, all those people that are those kind of like, older, we'll say 45 to 50 plus older, like conservative people. A lot of those people find me on Facebook. And they love the reaction videos to like the Trump and Zelensky stuff today, the Joy Reid stuff. They love that stuff. But I do get a lot of libs that find that page, and a lot of libs find me on Instagram to the point I don't even read the comments on Instagram anymore, because they are so impotent right now. These people have literally zero power. They have no power in DC. The power, even in the mainstream media, is waning, so all they can do is just scream.
Yeah, that's what concerns me. If people feel completely powerless, they become desperate, and desperate people can become violent. So I want people to still feel like they're influenced, that they have some impact, that their voices are still being heard.
There will be, as I think you were pointing out just a moment ago, Rob, the corporate media dumping as much money as possible into these personalities. Yes. Because cable is done. Donald Trump just won, and they're not going to go quietly into that good night. Mm-mm. The DNC has no frontline talent. They're not just going to give up. So we have routed the Marxists and the woke and the neoliberal establishment, but they're not gone. Donald Trump's actions in the government and Elon Musk's efforts with Doge largely is to gut their resource centers. Mm-hmm. But we're still going to see it takes only a few $1 million. This is what I warned last year when we were talking about these podcasters. You've got Rachel Maddow getting $25 million a year on a show that gets 100,000 in the key demo.
If she's lucky.
And so I can tell you how much money she's going to get off that. She's going to sell 100,000. I think you can muster up a couple grand in an ad sale for that one. Mm-hmm. So based on podcast sales, if it's an hour-long show, she might be able to do $5,000-$6,000. Maybe on the high end if you do a premium CPM, maybe $10,000. But is that going to cover $25 million salary? Ain't no way.
Yeah.
There is some money still in the fact that she gets a couple million from the elderly population, and I mean no disrespect to say that, but those ads only go so far. We're talking about reverse mortgages. Again, not being disrespectful. This is largely what's being advertised to the elderly is things like reverse mortgages. There's going to come a point where they say, hey, look, we've got $100 million left over, and Rachel Maddow's reaching no one. They're going to open up YouTube and be like, hey, this guy's getting 30 million views per month. What if we put his face on a billboard in every major city for $10 million and paid him $5 million cash to say what we want him to say? Yeah. That podcaster is going to say, yes, sir, tell me how high to jump. They're going to put their face on every major city. They're going to start telling all of the young people, if you want, here, one of the issues that I've been talking about quite a bit with everybody in the industry is ask yourself the question of why people listen to Bill Maher. Is it particularly relevant? No. Is he having conversations with people that are insightful? I'm not trying to be a dick, but no. I think he recently said he wasn't doing stand-up anymore. He's largely out of the conversation. He's still in it, but he was 3 years behind Dennis Prager, which was shockingly embarrassing. And so I know that if I have a conversation with him, I'm going to be saying, Bill, that happened 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. You missed this story. But you ask yourself why it is the corporate press is still so interested in his name, his narrative, and it's celebrity and ubiquity. The way they've been able to accomplish this is using what we would call a premium brand. Vice was very good at this. I'm not going to get into the whole ad rights distribution, but let's just say when you have a premium brand, it means people recognize it, whether it's actually on their TV or not. So you say Bill Maher, people say, I've heard of him. They probably never watch him. Most people don't. I think his ratings are about 800,000 in total per week. But people know the name. That means the corporate press, advertisers are going to say, well, at least they know this name, we'll buy it, because it's what we can think of. Our side of things, the independent media, does not recognize this yet, and they need to. There's a reason why CNN was buying billboards all over the country for as long as they did with Anderson Cooper's face on it, so that the average person would just say, yeah, I know him, he's the news guy. Yes, and they would say the most trusted name in news over and over and over again so that people would believe it because they're passive. What's going to happen? I'll tell you what we're doing. We're working on billboard campaigns. We did this 2 years ago because we want to steal that from the institutions. That's why we bought in Times Square. If we do not, and I honestly don't know why people aren't doing it, Democratic power structures are going to say, give us a list of 10 prominent liberal podcasters of any size, and we're going to spend $20 million. That's a pittance compared to what these powerful creepos have, some billionaires. People like to talk about George Soros. They're going to say, let's spend $20 million and see what our return is if we make these people ubiquitous. The goal will be a 16-year-old kid who's entering the political space, who he reads a lot, and he's charismatic, and he says, I want to be a personality. In his mind, he will say, clearly, the path to victory is a liberal podcaster because they're everywhere. They're on TV, they're on the billboards, they're in the skywriting campaigns. How do I get to that level where everyone knows my name too? It's going to be fabricated through infrastructure designed to win politics. Meanwhile, the independent element is largely just playing this game of share my show and I hope people hear about my name.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're at. So what I can tell you is the cost of outdoor ads has dropped dramatically because manufacturers and product companies like to do direct sales. This means that the typical marketing spaces of ubiquity, billboards along highways or in cities, have become ridiculously cheap to the point where you can buy a couple dozen major 100-foot tall to 30-foot tall billboards for about 80 grand for 6 months.
Oh, it's awesome.
Holy
So
crap.
obviously 80 grand is a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a media company on the right and you're thinking about, okay, so how much for 1 month then? For like 10 grand, you can have 20 billboards across a major city. Let's say, let's do, I was at the major.
New York would be a good one.
New York is way too expensive.
Boston.
Oh, okay.
So Times Square is actually
Boston
not
would
as
be great.
expensive as people think. We bought the entire North Tower on New Year's. It was 2 weeks in December until New Year's Eve. So on New Year's 2023, the entire North Tower, except for 2 billboards, which is owned by M&M and Coke, said Timcast, all synchronized at once with all of our shows, and it was $200,000.
Wow.
And so what we wanted, we bought a handful of ads that year. One was a 45-foot tall static billboard, I mean it's physical material, above the Today Show. So that every single journalist, every day as they walk into that building, they see my face above them. We need to make sure everybody sees and everybody knows. And the response was invaluable. Can we directly track whether or not more people watch the show because of it? I honestly don't know. What I can tell you is I was inundated with people sharing links with me from liberal podcasters and social media where they were freaking out at the fact that Timcast IRL was on a 100-foot tall billboard in downtown Chicago on the side of a skyscraper. That in Times Square, the entire North Tower said Timcast. It was a statement for all of these people to recognize we are taking the space over. It was for advertisers. You do it in Times Square because you want the big advertisers to see your brand and say, that looks big. So that when, as I mentioned, the premium brand value of, say, Bill Maher, which he does have, we need to associate with our side of things. If we do not, the DNC's power structures are going to take people like, well, I'm not going to name anybody. I don't want to give anybody the airtime. But some of these big shows, they're going to prop them up, and they're going to start putting out metrics saying, Joe Rogan's not the biggest anymore. Midas Touch is.
You might have already answered my question because I'm like, what's the next phase of war? And what I mean by in this instance of war is like the war being put, the co-opt of the American Republic by the business establishment, by this swamp. What's the next phase of the swamp monster? Because you're right. There's a route. Their people are currently scattering in every direction with no idea what's coming next. They just want to survive. Then they're going to regroup. And then we're in a fortification stage right now.
No, they're not fortifying it.
No. I say the people that have taken the hill are now in the fortification stage. Like, so what's the fortification process?
So
like you're saying, buy billboards, get the ground.
Yes. So I believe the next major move of the establishment, deep state bureaucrats, they know that they're losing the culture war. They know that Bud Light was a disaster. They know that Target was a disaster. Disney lost $1 billion, a disaster. Culturally, they've been crushed, and they need to exert cultural dominance on the institutions. Losing this battle through independent media, through merit, is shocking, but it's largely because the structures they tried to maintain for the narrative are failing. Television and newspapers are no longer the principal way people consume information. They neglected this. When you see people like David Pakman and Kyle Kalinske and Brian Tyler Cohen, big liberal podcasters, complaining that they're not getting the big advertisers and the Democrats aren't supporting them, they are not wrong. These people have built big channels, they have big followings, they make millions of dollars, but they're not getting political institutional support. They're angry about it. The institutional support was still going to MSNBC, where the intel officers were routine guests, going to the newspapers. The intel people weren't going to liberal podcasters and saying, we're going to let you break this story so you can reach 3 million subscribers. They were like, we're going to go to the Washington Post. So guess what? Nobody read it. So as people were migrating to independent platforms, Joe Rogan took over, whether on purpose or otherwise. It was easy to access, it was authentic, and it was available. It was right there in front of you, right when you open your podcast thing. And Joe was an honest guy. So when he had a real conversation, he didn't entertain the lies from the intelligence agencies or the establishment. The next move they have to make is recognizing how they lost that battle and buying it back. And they can buy us over 10 times.
They can.
Absolutely. And that's why I've been warning for the past year, we need absolute control of the media infrastructure. It's great that Bezos is saying opinion section is going to change. He's recognizing that the messaging failure in that regard. Probably the threat to himself, too, as a wealthy individual being chased after by Marxists. But my point is, and then you guys, I'd love to hear what you guys think other moves they'll make is, I would not be surprised if this summer you see a liberal podcaster in every major city on 30 billboards in every city, a $20 million campaign, not because... So I'll break it down. How do the power structures do it? First, a powerful billionaire of liberal persuasion is going to reach out to a liberal podcaster and say, I'd like to buy a portion of your company. Mm-hmm. I'll buy 30% for $50 million, some ridiculous number. A report will come out saying a new media deal between some corporation with investment backed by this powerful billionaire recently purchased a minority stake in so-and-so speech networks, which is owned by insert liberal podcaster. They will then say, now that we're a minority owner, we want to invest $20 million in an ad campaign. You're going to see this person's face on the side of billboards. You're going to see it across highways. They're going to hire the best and biggest PR. They're going to write a book. They're going to buy 100,000 copies of their own book, and the New York Times is going to claim it's the #1 bestseller. Mm-hmm. They're then going to put this person in movies. You'll see this in Iron Man, when Bill O'Reilly in Iron Man 2 is on the TV talking about Virginia Pepper Potts. They are going to try and inject cultural ubiquity through these individuals to create the perception among the general public they are Joe Rogan. They are what he is to us today. Mm-hmm. It will not be real, but you will not be able to tell the difference. That's going to be, I believe that's their next big play. You
said that we should establish that we need, I don't know exact words you used, absolute control of the media. The way you said it, I was like, well, that could be interpreted in a dangerous direction. We need to exert cultural dominance over media institutions. Yeah, that I agree with. Because you still need a free media, and if they want to corrupt your people, then that's a discussion. Is it a monopoly at that point?
Well, it is, but, and even as much as we talk about how, the MSNBC and the CNN and et cetera is over and over and over, and it is kind of, but you got to understand, every gym, every airport, every public space, all across the country, what do you see? CNN, MSNBC. It is ubiquitous.
Not anymore. CNN a few years ago lost their airport contracts.
They use the airport. I'm just thinking, I see it in the gym all the time.
But I recently had a conversation with some guys in the industry when they were talking about, how do we, it's a general conversation of how do we expand? How do we reach more people? And I said, airports and hotel lobbies. And they were like, yeah, but is that real? And I'm like, did it matter for CNN for 20 years
Right.
when everybody recognized Anderson Cooper? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
You want people to see that. Look, if this stuff
recognition.
didn't work, Coca-Cola
Yeah.
would not buy billboards.
And to take it even one step further, what's going to happen with, and I just always use MSNBC as an example because it's just the most far left of them. They're going to start gobbling up some of these people as well. Just the cable news structure is something that is very out of date. Even when you watch it, it's why the clips will play on Twitter. But when's the last time you sat down and actually watched one of these shows? It just doesn't work.
To be fair, I watch The Five every day.
You watch The Five every day?
Yeah, Greg Gutfeld's fantastic.
Well, Gutfeld's great, and
I
it's
can't
fun.
watch his show at night because we're wrapping up our show.
Yeah.
But
Gutfeld
yeah.
is great, and that show is fun, and that show is Anomaly, and it's also super fun to
For
do.
me, 2015 or 16, and
Yeah.
I'm like not an aficionado in politics.
So-
2016, I just stopped. I do the internet now.
And I think that there is a value to it sometimes, right? But I think the point that I'm making is even with MSNBC, look, they know that these shows don't work, and they know that they will work less and less. So they're going to start gobbling some of these people up, and then the corporate structure that props up MSNBC and all that money, like that stuff is going to go to some of these people as well.
It's an honest question. And I'm not the biggest fan of Fox News as a whole.
Yeah.
They're okay.
Yeah.
Why isn't The Five just also live streamed on their YouTube channel and uploaded to Apple and Spotify?
I don't know why the.
I don't know.
I think it is on XM though.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that, not to speak out of school too much about, how Fox does business, but I know that it's a very traditional TV model. And I know that with a lot of their shows, because I know that they, being Fox Talent is great because, they'll wrap the podcast up in it and the book up in it and all that stuff. But I think that The Five is just not set up that way. And I think that it has something to do with maybe carriage and all of that stuff.
Maybe.
But it's just very, it's kind of,
It's such an established business model.
Yeah.
In LA, I was an actor in LA in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And they wouldn't take headshots through email. It got to the point where I was like, why do I need to go spend $30 to mail out things to people that take a day or a courier to get there when I can email it? And they're like, no, we don't take emails. And why? There was zero answers because just that we've always done it this way. It's too expensive to change. No one really needs to change over here. So you do it the old model. And it just died off as a result. It wasn't agile. It took forever to get apart. And you had to wait, and you're lucky, and so all these people on Instagram start blowing up and getting super famous and rich without having to wait for this extended old school process.
And I think that even with some of the mainstream media outlets, I think that what I see in this industry, in this business, is that everything's going to start coming together, right? And we see it even in the conservative sort of influencer commentator space, like we see some people that have like maybe talked crap about CPAC in the past, and now they're at CPAC now speaking on the stage. So everything is kind of coming together, right? And so what I see happening with a lot of these networks, and just think about Fox, right? At a certain point, the numbers are going down across the board for all of these networks. And at a certain point, they're going to start looking and bringing in people from new media, from independent, like whatever you want to call it. And eventually, what I hope happens with a behemoth like Fox, because, man, you ever been in a Fox, is the best lighting you're ever going to get in your life.
Yeah.
All right? The best light, I wish that I could just travel all the time in that lighting. It's the best lighting you're ever going to get in your life. Resources are limitless. And when you get some of these people that have been kind of ubiquitous in this space, and you give them that corporate backing, that's what I think is going to start happening. But I don't think we're going to see that for another 7 to 10 years.
My experience.
When I went on Jesse Waters recently, it's really amazing to watch how they do these shows live.
Yeah.
Because they're like, okay, a commercial break. You've got a minute, Mr. Poole. They walk me into the studio. Jesse's sitting there. He shakes my hand. He's small talking, and I'm thinking like, are we going live in like 10 seconds?
10
and he's
seconds.
acting like we're just in a room hanging out. And then he's talking to me, and he asks me a question, I answer, and then he goes, so we're here now. And I was like, how did he do that? It's amazing.
It is a well-oiled machine. That's 6th Avenue, New York City. That is a well-oiled machine. But it's like, they're there and they do it, every single day. And it's just like, you guys with this podcast,
Right.
when you do something every single day, you become an expert at it.
Yeah, my experience with corporations like Fox, big, multi-million, billion-dollar corporations, hiring super famous influencers, I guess you would call them, is that the influencers, they take the contract and then like, what am I doing here? I can make the same money on my own. Why am I now stuck working for someone else and not able to speak my mind on Twitter? So I don't know if that model's going to work. It might play out.
It may work with some people, because I got to tell you, for some, look, for some people, you get to a certain point, and I will say this as like an independent media personality, and I do my thing and I make my money and I make my rounds, right? Not as big as anything that's going on here, right? But there's going to be some people, you can live a nice life and you can make a decent amount of money and you can do your work and you can speak your mind at a certain level, and then at a certain point when your platform becomes big enough and somebody's going to like scoop you up for $1-2 million a year, you'll be like, hell, why not? I'm in my mid 50s. Maybe I got a couple kids that, at that point in time, maybe I want to spend a little bit more time with them. I just think about sort of the cycle in this business, in this industry, as you're somebody like me, because I don't personally have the desire to run an operation like this.
We watch, I like to watch, as Steve Ennin advised, opposition media.
Yeah.
I like to go to their forums. I like to read what their users are saying, what they're believing. And I can tell you there are liberal podcasts that have no problem lying, as we all can already imagine. Let me just say that an individual who is willing to publish a statement like Trump has the lowest all-time approval at a time when in aggregate and in each individual poll he has the best polling of his career, an individual who would literally report the inversion of reality will take a couple $1 million to report lies for a politician.
They'll do anything.
And that's what we're going to see happen. And there are people who believe them for whatever reason they do. So, Ian, you made a really good point last year when you said you try to vaccinate your parents with information.
Yeah, get it to them before the media
Your
gets
parents
to
are
them.
libs?
Rough. They're like middle of the road because I'm able to communicate ideas with them. I'm like, get ready for this USAID thing. They're going to call it aid. Get ready for the vaccine. Get immune for this one. And my mom was like, oh, snap. My dad was
My
like,
mom's
whoa,
already
yeah.
based.
Basically, what Ian's point was, and it was very good, is the media is about to lie. You need to show them the truth before the lie so they can immediately be like, that's not true and I know it. You've got to get them their information before the manipulators, because what we end up seeing is, shout out to Daniel Negreanu. I'm a big fan. He was on the show. He said he believed the Very Fine People hoax for the longest time.
Oh, man.
But he saw the video. He said, I saw the video. Trump said it. What happened is he saw the corporate press. He saw the liberal pundits. A video of Trump saying they were very fine people on both sides. End of story. Finally, one day, he was arguing with his friend, and his friend was like, Trump never said. He goes, yes, he did. I saw the video. And he goes, no, you didn't. And he's like, in his mind, he's thinking, I literally watched the video on my phone.
Yeah.
So the dude put his phone down, slid it to him, and said, watch. And he goes, fine. And then he saw the extended video when Trump said, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis, the white nationalists. They should be condemned totally. And he went, holy crap. The reason you need to provide the vaccine information is because if I go to someone and say, here's a video of Trump saying I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis, he now says, I saw the video. Trump said I'm not talking about them. And so he rejects the lie. What they're hoping for is the first time a person is exposed to the information will be the lie.
Yeah.
So they'll be convinced they've already seen the information.
And then they repeat the lie over and
right.
over and over.
Yeah.
The Very Fine People smear is one of, I think, one of the biggest hoaxes about Trump, but in recent memory. And I remember when that went out, and that was a part of my awakening, because I started doing all this stuff around 2018. And a part of how I built my brand, in the earlier days, was just literally as a journalist. And it wasn't even like super rah pro Trump. It was just like, wait a minute, these people are lying, then they keep on lying.
Yeah.
We're going to go to your super chat. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? Share the show with everyone you know. If you got the opportunity, you say to your friends, Timcast IRL is the greatest show. Everyone agrees. At least that's what I've been told, because that's how podcasts grow big.
And if
that's basically what we're talking about is...
growing big. And if you own an airport and you want to run Timcast IRL at the airport, hit me up.
You have my permission.
Oh, awesome.
Well, right, because we've been operating in the space for so long of, please... make sure you're sharing the shows you like, because organic virality will help us reach more people. The corporate machine has been like, that's so cute, guys.
Yeah.
Hey, television network, run our political ad full of lies everywhere for 500 million people.
That's how I feel when I'm sorry to interrupt. I was trying to catch the tail end of what you're saying. That's how I feel when I make 20% on crypto or 5% on crypto. I'm like, dude, the dudes that are controlling the levers are like, oh, enjoy your crumbs, little one.
Crumbs. Yeah. Well, we're changing the game. We're changing it. Rumble.com/TimcastIRL. Go to TimcastPremium.com and sign up, be a Rumble Premium member. We got big plans. We've been working hard behind the scenes. We're going to do some really awesome stuff. And we are going to push back and make sure, to the best of our abilities, that in the coming year or two, we will not let these institutions try and take over the space that we have hard fought and won through our talent and merit that they're going to try and invade. We'll grab your super chats. In the meantime, though, smash that like button. We got Quantum Strange Quark, who says, regarding the Epstein files, has anyone checked to see if the services that the FBI used to pick up the shredded classified material for final destruction are seeing an increase in business?
I haven't looked into it.
You know, I wonder, but I think it's fair to say, as a lot of people have already pointed out, the Epstein files probably got destroyed a long time ago.
I mean, they would have not done their job if they hadn't. I'm saying the nefarious ones that are supposed to be covering up these horrible crimes. Of course, you would think that'd be the first thing they would do is eradicate the evidence. Why would there ever be evidence? Except you're going to use it on blackmail on someone and be like, hey, I have your flight log. Your name's still on it.
Alpha Turkey says, the devil first lied to man by saying he can be like God by eating the fruit to gain knowledge. Now he will lie again by saying that we can be like God by gaining immortality through Neuralink. Yes, let me just make sure you understand. There is no reality where you can download your brain into a computer. You can only copy your brain. And one of my favorite memes was a picture of a person smiling, and it says, what was it, like me looking up from hell at the android I downloaded my consciousness into, living my life for me?
Yep.
Yeah. That was a good one.
The idea, like, there are people that talk about, when they'll be able to do teleportation, when they can disassemble your body into individual atoms, transmit them at the speed of light, and then reassemble them. I'm like, there is no way that you're going to actually be alive after that process.
And that is actually
that's gonna be the first one
canon
to try.
in Star Trek.
Yeah.
In Star Trek, it is canon that whenever you beam up, they destroy your body and create a new version of you, and you're dead.
Yeah, I don't buy it.
There was actually an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation where they were attempting to beam up, at the time, Lieutenant Riker, who eventually became Commander Riker, from a planet with a static disturbance, ionic disturbance in the atmosphere. And so the signal that intended to copy his biological structure was fragmented. Part of the signal bounced back, reforming him on the planet. The other half went to the planet, and the program they had restructured him with available data.
On the ship,
On the ship, creating two of them at the same time. Mm-hmm. Eventually, they responded to a distress signal, and Commander Riker discovers another version of himself. So sci-fi has long said, transportation kills you.
Yep.
It does not transport you. You die, and a new... For that matter, the idea of transporting each individual atom makes no sense.
No.
If they've mapped out every atom of your body, they would just use whatever atoms they had available to reconstruct you.
it makes more
Different
sense.
ones. And it's not you.
Yeah, it's a different person.
Yep.
I'm not buying that there will ever be teleportation, ever.
Yeah, I'm not
Unless
going to be
they-
the first one to volunteer.
Unless they actually discover the soul. And they're like, look at that, the soul, and we can pick it up and move it.
Yeah, I mean, internet video is kind of like teleportation. You're
No, it's not.
You're teleporting your sight and your hearing to another place in real time.
It's not.
Let's read this. We got Gerald
close.
Armstrong, who says, does Cernovich regret his wear a mask tweet? It makes you look like a clown in hindsight. I completely disagree. So many prominent conservatives early on in COVID were telling everyone to wear a mask. In fact, I got sent probably 30 masks from prominent conservatives being like, hey, Tim, get ready. They're not telling you what's going on in the media. I got sent N95s. I got sent some of those like paint masks. And then as soon as the narrative switched, conservatives all abandoned masks. So I don't think, I'm not going to drag anybody for taking actions at a time of uncertainty. You know what I mean? So long as if the action was, I'm stealing your freedom from you, then I've got issues. If you said, hey man, why don't you wear a mask? I'd be like, it's my choice. I've decided not to. Fine. If you said, do it or else, now I got a problem with you. So the people who advocated for things that were your choice to do, I don't care. Somebody, if Ben Shapiro said get a vaccine, people are all mad at him about it. I'm like, who cares? He didn't force you to do it. In fact, the Daily Wire fought against the government to stop the mandates. I respect that.
And won.
And won. I know, tremendous. All right, what do we got? We got William Jones as public affairs officer here in DOD. Guidance from Hegseth has all historically released information media regarding DEI to be deleted over the past 20 years. Seems like erasing history. Thoughts? That's an interesting point. Maybe we want to preserve the records and archive them,
We
but
definitely
remove them from our structures.
Same with USAID. That website came down the day they defunded it or started looking into it, and Mike Benz was like, "Dude, I need that website for research."
It's
Yes.
still on
Yep.
the Wayback Machine.
Well, actually, when they took it down, I don't know if it still is today. You had to directly go to the link. If you went to the actual website, it was dead. But if you had an old link, you could still get through to certain pages.
I think that, sometimes people want to memory hole things.
Yep.
And I think that's very easy to memory hole. And what this makes me think of, and obviously, like, my mind is going back to the early days of COVID. And I remember, like, watching Tucker every night back in the Fox Tucker days. And, just breaking stuff that nobody was breaking, saying things that nobody was saying. And I remember he is documenting this so that this moment in history and these things are documented, right? So I think that that's important.
Let's grab this Rumble rant from Trent Lamalino. He says, if there is anyone I trust out of the bunch, it's Cerno. Sorry, Fed Poso, LOL. Jackie's calling you out.
Fed.
Corpus says, as a fellow half-breed here, I'm sorry, I can't read what you wrote entirely. He says, as a fellow half-breed here, Tim, I've been a member since the beginning and wanted to congratulate you on starting your family, sir. Thank you very much. I love the term mudblood. You guys know mudblood from Harry Potter?
Yeah.
So mudbloods were like wizards who didn't have pure like basically Harry Potter is magic Nazis. I'm not kidding.
I did not know you were biracial.
Yeah, part Korean, Japanese.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. So
The more you know.
I'm not a big fan of the term biracial either.
No?
No, because it's like, who's really bi? Like that means two. Like I'm
Multiracial?
well, I'm German,
Mix?
French, British, Korean, Japanese. So it's like, I guess if you're saying part Southeast Asian, part white. But like there are people who are like, you've got Haitian, you've got like Central American, Native American, and white. It's like triracial. Whatever.
Yeah.
But I wish I
mixed
could
up.
read what he said in it. But I do love Mudblood because I'm a Harry Potter fan. That means I'm a nerd millennial. You get it. Is it a geek? Yeah, it's a geek. Sorry. All right, let's go. We'll grab. What do we have here? We got Patriot American that says, Tim, I've shot both the Mosin Nagant and the AK-47. They're not that bad, though I do prefer the AR-15. Yeah, no, let me clarify that. I'm not saying, like, actually the Soviets produced pretty dang good, reliable. But the point was, during the Soviet era, their wars, they made really, really cheap weapons. Turns out the AK is pretty effective. And let's just say, I don't know what the right word is. It's...
Resilient.
Resilient. Yeah, there you go. That's the right word. It's not so complicated. It can be used very easily.
Drop it in the mud and still works.
Exactly.
Not only that, if they're part of the reason is because the tolerances are very loose. So you don't with an AR-15, the tolerances are very tight. Things have to be exactly the right size to fit
Right.
together. With an AK-47, it's a stamped receiver. It's basically sheet metal bent into the right shape, and then all the pieces, they fit together, but they don't have to fit together very tight, so there's room for dirt and stuff to kind of fall out. So.
You know what's really interesting? There's a story, I believe it goes back to the French and English wars, I'm not entirely sure, where one side reduced the size, the thickness of their bowstrings, and reduced the size of the notches in their arrows. The point was, when the enemy fired arrows at them, the notches were large enough to fit in their bowstrings and be fired back, so they could reload. But the arrows they fired could not be notched in the thick bowstring, so they could not use them.
Yep.
The Soviets, for this reason, and I could be wrong about this, I just read some blogs on the internet, created the Makarov 9mm intentionally for that reason. It is, what is it, 9 by 18? Am I getting that wrong?
9 by 18 is the
Makarov.
Yeah.
And I think what standard 9mm is 919.
Yep.
The intention was they wanted to make sure that if their ammo fell into the enemy's hands, it could not be used against them. Interesting stuff. And now you have largely useless 9mm Makarov floating around all over the world that has to be specifically, like, I don't know.
You're right about that battle. I've heard about that before. I'm looking at biocoding weapons. They're talking about getting them so they genetically only function with your body.
It's a terrible idea.
They're they exist, handprint guns,
Yeah.
where they want it so that your palm print has to be read by the device, otherwise it doesn't fire.
That's actually incredible. I like
Yeah.
that idea.
Downside is you
it
can't
seems
give it.
safer.
Like you can't give it to your buddy in combat, which
Hate
is a
it.
big
Yes,
part of
they have
regulation. But
high rate of malfunction.
downside
High rate
is
of malfunction.
How many times have you tried to use your fingerprinting on your phone and it won't read your thumbprint?
Yeah.
And because it changes a little bit as your skin wrinkles or you gain or lose weight. So imagine a cop draws the weapon and doesn't work.
I will stick with my analog Glock 19.
Yeah. Bio-coded.
All
weapons.
right, all right. Just Because I'm Free says, love Ian's little jam sessions in the gaming. Need to start doing it over on Rumble. Rumble is where it's at, Ian. Get off YouTube, you hippie boomer.
Oh, I've been on YouTube for 20 years, man. It's tough to leave those you love. But yeah, let's do it. I just launched a song on my YouTube channel. Still, what is it? I don't remember what it's called.
I'm warning everybody right now.
Still Play Me is what it's called. It's about people that play one-shot kill combos in Magic the Gathering.
I'm warning everybody right now. For smaller, newer channels, Rumble is the place. Take, for instance, the Culture War podcast. It is not, it's the smallest of the live shows we do. We usually get between 7,000 and sometimes 15,000 concurrent viewers, whereas Timcast IRL routinely does 50,000 plus, and the morning show does 25 to 30,000. On Rumble, though, when we launch the Culture War, as it's a smaller show, we have more viewers initially on Rumble than we do on YouTube with the Culture War podcast. And it's because the Rumble audience is different from the YouTube audience, and they are looking for and hungry for content, and Rumble isn't as censorious, so newer shows pop up immediately in a less crowded space for a hungrier audience. My advice to people is if you're starting a new show, a new podcast, you will have a larger initial audience to start if you're on Rumble. If you're on YouTube, you'll get nothing, you'll be suppressed, they'll likely ban you, and they won't monetize you in the first place. I'm not saying don't use it. That's not at all. I'm saying when you start your show, whatever you're doing with music or gaming or politics, whatever it is, you obviously want to be on every platform. I guarantee you right now, if you started a show and you were on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Apple, and X, Rumble's going to be your biggest audience. Even if you're like looking at 100 views as for a small new channel. So we got to pick that game up, my friends.
Oh yeah, I love Rumble.
It is good.
They were testing a gaming thing. I don't know if they have they bought something they were going to turn into gaming at some point, but I'm not sure. I would help them. I'd like to work on it.
A lot of big things coming.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Well, one of the big things I'm hoping for, and we'll see what happens, is I think a key for Rumble is going to be promoting new shows, making sure, this is so big. One of the biggest things about YouTube was something in the beginning called the suggested user list. Do you remember that, Ian?
Where did it show up?
They
No.
called it the SUL. In the early days of YouTube, people to this day who are prominent millionaires.
On the right, would it show up on the right side of the page? On the left side of the page?
I don't. When you were signing up, many prominent YouTubers' careers were made not because they were good, but because they were there. So when,
I can attest to that.
Yes, when you signed up for YouTube, YouTube would be like, "Look, we want you to stay on this page, so here's what we have available for you to choose from." And they would tell new users to follow certain individuals on YouTube. That was called the suggested user list. There were people who did nothing of merit, but they did post every day. So YouTube was like, well, this guy posts every day. At the time, YouTube was largely random videos like Charlie Bit My Finger. A family would upload a video to share with friends and family. Eventually, people started to emerge where they would record on a webcam and post every single day. YouTube then says, hey, this is consistent. Let's just tell people to follow these guys. Some of those people still exist to this day, some 20 years later, millions of dollars simply for being there. So I'm just saying, there's the opportunity, man. A platform built for video podcasting is available to you on Rumble. And what I'm hoping for is that there will be some kind of algorithmic growth engine for new shows, which will set the standard that if you want to make it in video podcasting, your fastest path to running a business and succeeding with an audience is going to be on Rumble instead. I think that's already true, but we need a faster, stronger mechanism for it.
Yeah, like inner site commercials where you can send people as a creator to all these new upcomings and stuff like that. Directly.
Suggested user lists and things like that, which they may already have, but it's going to require some finesse. Let's grab some more. All right, what do we have here? Patriot says, followers and supporters are upset because what is new? Y'all still went with the narrative after you knew about the embargo. Check your posts. The promises made kept mantra sounds like Bush admin, our resolve, all BS. I will say, I talked to a handful of people who were there. Obviously, Mike was one of the guys. He told me right away. He's like, we're not seeing a lot that's incriminating in this. Some of it's old, some of it's unredacted, some of it's new, but not really that big a deal. And I absolutely said that on Timcast IRL. I said exactly what I was told on background without revealing any information. It wasn't just Mike I was talking about. I don't want to just act like he's the only one who was telling me these things. But, outright we wanted to make sure everybody understood what was going on. And
If you don't know, it's basically there's a table of contents with a bunch of names and
It's flight logs.
time, and then there's a bunch of
Nothing
redacted
incriminating.
names with like Evelyn Rothschild's name's on it. I don't know. That means he flew on the plane once.
No,
at
that's a
least.
No. He didn't. That's
just contact
that's the black
info?
book.
Yeah.
That's like someone said, "Here's my number. Give me a call sometime."
And it's rough because they're trying to do new things, right? In the White House press room, and they're trying to do new things with influencers. All of this stuff is very, very new, right? So, when you're trying to do new things and you're cracking eggs, everything's not going to be perfect the first go round.
I want to summarize though. Basically, if you want, this is what the Epstein binder basically was.
Big black page.
You need an idea.
It's ridiculous.
To be fair, that's the victim list.
Okay.
So they redacted that.
Yeah.
All right. My Doug Eats Jeans says, "Love your new backdrop. Only here for Ian." Kidding, not kidding.
What's up, homie?
So we are in an undisclosed location at a party, and I'm going to say the location of the place after we leave because I don't want to risk anybody's security. There's prominent personnel here. I will say it was an honor and a privilege to interview very briefly David Sachs on AI issues. So we filmed that, and it's editing right now. We're trying to figure out how to publish it. Don't know if we want to paywall it because David Sachs is the White House AI guy. And I'm like, let's hear what he has to say. Very optimistic. He said most people are concerned about the risks that we can't actually predict while ignoring the tremendous upsides, which we can to a degree.
That's
And
awesome.
I agree. Because we talk about medical advancements and technology, detecting cancers before a doctor can. I mean, there's going to be some amazing stuff here. But we are pretty worried. All right, we got time for one more. No name, anonymous, says, Epstein flew to and from Fort Knox in 1996, picking up a Microsoft executive. Interesting. Okay, one
Bill
more.
Gates has Knox Gold.
Nolan Buzz says, did Zelensky sabotage this peace deal on purpose? This is the first failed peace deal. Who is putting up to this? The EU, NATO, why? No. This is different. Insulting Trump and Vance means the U.S. might just be like, we're done, bye. And then the war's over. So, my friends, we do have to wrap things up. We are in a somewhat public space. It's very noisy. Smash the like button, share the show, become a premium member of Rumble. Go to timcastpremium.com. Use promo code TIM10. You'll get $10 off your annual membership. We've got 2 feature-length documentaries already. We have a whole other podcast, The Green Room Show. It's blowing up. We're getting about 40,000 views, and it's premium. It's a members-only show that's massive. You got to check it out. Some of these are really chill. Some of them are really off the cuff, uncensored, good fun. And, of course, Monday through Thursday, we have our uncensored call-in show live. We don't have that tonight. We're going to wrap things up, though. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Rob, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, you can follow me at Rob Smith Online, but listen, download Can't Cancel Rob Smith, Apple Podcasts, iHeart Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Got a fresh episode dropped just tonight. So if you like what you hear, if you like me, go hit up that podcast.
I'm at Ian Crossland. You can get me all over the internet at Ian Crossland, particularly on YouTube. I uploaded a video earlier today. It's a song. I said, Still Play Me. It's about what I would say to someone. Actually, Allison inspired me. What I would say to someone that plays that card in Magic, where it's like, I just got to get that one card to deck
Talking
you.
about me.
Yeah, well, then I was like, actually, I'm thinking about Allison because Tim influenced her to play that stupid deck. So I'm like, this goes out to all the homies that play that dumbass one-shot kill combo. Yeah, dude, the song's awesome. Check it out.
Allison's deck is not a one-shot kill combo. It's got multiple functions for a path to victory.
Oh, okay, multiple one-shot kill combos. Is that what I'm hearing here? Anyway, check it out on YouTube. And check out that Green Room episode with me and Milo. I think it was very funny. I hope the audio came out good. Yeah, that was really enjoyable. Milo Yiannopoulos and I, we get along
You'll
swimming.
be grossed out, but okay.
Follow me at Ian Crossland and Phil. Talk me out, baby.
I am Phil It Remains on Twix. I'm Phil It Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. Our new record dropped on January 31st. It's called Anti-Fragile. You can check it out on YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, and Deezer. Don't forget the left lane is for crime.
I got to go drive home now to be with my family and my newborn daughter, and I regret nothing. Thank you for hanging out. We'll see you all on Monday.